It says live. It says it's going. So we'll see how that goes. Um, I'm just going to assume that it's going. So hey, we're live. Having a little connection issue. Hopefully it won't be too terrible, but we're back. It's Cole and Jess. Did you resume the Harry Potter series? It's been a while, but we are back. Had some trouble getting this one together, but I'm glad we're finally going to do it. This is year 4 for Harry Potter. So this is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, which, shoot, I don't know how much it's going to show up or not. Here is the original book. This is my favorite book, but not my favorite movie. The last movie we did, the third one, is my favorite movie, but this is actually my favorite book. So obviously, I'm going to have some problems with the movie, and we will, of course, talk about that. Not to be a broken record, but a lot of this is me talking about a lot of the differences between the book and the movie, as I've made clear in the other videos. So if that doesn't sound too annoying, come along and join with us. I feel like this, when the book came out, not the movie, that was more the height of Harry Potter, really, even because it was all about anticipation. And I felt it was almost as good as it get. And I don't want to suggest all the movies are disappointed. I don't want to suggest the rest of the books were a disappointment. I just mean I felt like this was the best book. It's the one I enjoyed the most. And there was such a feeling of anticipation because it came out in summer of 2000. And by then, they had announced there was going to be a movie within the next year. So there was the big excitement about, the movies coming. And of course, there was a big excitement about how they would follow this book up, because this book features, the official return of Lord Voldemort. So I feel like that was almost the height of it, even though for a lot of people, it hadn't even yet begun, because a lot of people hadn't come in yet until the movie started. But for me, this was kind of as good as it got. And I don't want to imply that meant it was all downhill and everything sucked. No, I just mean this was the best, is how it was. But I mean, obviously, I do like a lot of the stuff in the movies, which is why we're doing the series. So yeah, so the movie, of course, came out in 2005, a few years later, with the first film coming out, like I said, the year after, in 2001. So by now, we're well into it. Not to harp on it too much, but, we talked about the director, Chris Columbus had done the first two, and then it was a one-off for the director of the third, as it turned out. Spanish director who I like so much, of course, now, whose name I can't remember. But
Alfonso
Cuarón. Yeah, Cuarón, that's right. Did a great job, loved it. But anyway, Chris Columbus even had considered returning to do this one, but the fact was he was planning to move back to the States, because he actually moved his entire family because it was such a big deal to do the first two. It was so time consuming, right? So for a couple of years, his whole family lived in England to do the two movies, and they were still there when the third movie came out, but they were contemplating moving back to the U.S. and he decided that's what he wanted to do, rather than put it off anymore. So he decided not to do it, and we get. Again, I was a little confused because I thought, oh, this is the director that finally locks it in, but no, it's another one-off director, isn't it? It's,
Newell? Is it Mike Newell?
Mike Newell. Mike Newell. Right, Mike Newell. So this is Mike Newell coming in. Crap, I wish I had something better about it. There's a little thing here, a quote from one of the producers talking about Cuarón. When Alfonso made the decision to focus on completing Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, we were faced with the daunting task of finding a director to handle complex challenges, blah, 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 blah. Mike's rich and diverse body work shown to be a perfect show. Okay, never mind. Sorry. Anyway, that's just a press release saying how thrilled he is. No, there was something else about how Newell got on. I know that several directors are considered, including M. Night Shyamalan. And M. Night Shyamalan, I'm glad he didn't do it.
Yeah, me too.
Piece of awful director, but wanted to do Life of Pi. Now, I'm pretty sure
you're frozen. So, yeah, I think there's
Sorry
some
about that. Okay, I
there you
think I had too much stuff open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what it was I had too much tabs and stuff running. I think there was too much, so I just shut some of that down. I'm not saying it'll be perfect, but hopefully that will help it a little bit. There's not much all I can do when I'm connected with. But I'm thinking maybe it was because I was I had like this is on Opera, but I was also running stuff on Google Chrome. I shut down the Google Chrome stuff. So I'm thinking maybe it was just overburdened or something. Internet's been weird and not reliable lately. Frustrating.
Fun technology. You're sounding okay at the moment.
Yeah, so anyway, it was just about the directors and yeah. M. Night Shyamalan had turned it down because he wanted to do Life of Pi, which is funny because he didn't wind up actually getting that movie. I don't remember if he did, but it wasn't him. So he did something else. But anyway, I'm glad it wasn't him because I don't like his stuff. Yeah, we get Newell here coming in. He is a British director, so that probably helps a little bit. Not like it was necessarily a requirement or anything, but helps them get in. So anyway, I don't want to overburden us too much with the long intro, but yeah. So this is the first where the books start to get quite long. So obviously things are going to be cut, and I can't talk about all of it. But before we start the movie, I will just say like the biggest stuff to get it out of the way. And the biggest stuff is like the whole mystery thing basically gets ruined. The movie decides not to do a mystery. The movie decides to just tell us things instead of making us guess. And that's about Barty Crouch Jr. The character Barty Crouch Jr. was a young Death Eater that was imprisoned by his own father. And before the time of this movie, shortly before this movie, escapes Azkaban. And then rejoins Voldemort and has this plan to take the place of Moody at the school and do this really convoluted plan that makes no sense. So that's the other thing. It's my favorite book, and it has the biggest plot hole in the whole thing. Because let's be honest, this plan makes no sense. Why do you need to make only the Goblet of Fire the portkey? Make anything a portkey and get Harry to touch it. Instead, you do this massive, elaborate plan where first of all, Harry's too young for the tournament. You have to fool the goblet by putting his name in. Then you have to make sure that he keeps winning in the tournament. So then you have all the subterfuge there going on to make sure that he gets hints and helps and stuff like that. Also, that he can be the first one to touch it and go away. But we learn early in the movie that anything can be made into a portkey for a designated period of time. So obviously, Crouch Jr., as Moody, would have had plenty of opportunity and time to get Harry away, like slightly away from some people and teachers for a amount of time, get him to touch something and go to the graveyard, right? But anyway, it's a massive plot hole. I don't mind. I'll let it go. But anyway, getting back to how the movie changes things. So it's one of those logic things that I guess, again, if you just watch the movies and don't read the books, you don't think about. But think about even in the movie that we just watched, Prisoner of Azkaban. Think of what a big deal it was that Sirius Black had escaped, right? Now, yes, he was more famous. He was allegedly a mass murderer, right? He'd been framed for all those murders, so people thought. But still, any breakout of Azkaban would be news. So why is there no news at all in this movie of a prisoner, Barty Crouch Jr., escaping Azkaban? I'll tell you why. Because there was no... Oh, sorry, getting some noise on your end. Something.
Sorry. Is that better?
Picking up something. I guess we'll just have to go with it. I'm not sure what's causing it. Just like a bit of a
high pitch.
That's better. There, whatever you just did helped bring it down. That helped. But can I still hear you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, there, that did it. Whatever you did, that did it. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. But anyway, the reason is there's no news of it because the way he does break out, because he switches places with his own mother, which Crouch Sr. was complicit in. The whole thing was his mother convinced him to bring his own mother in, who was dying anyway, to switch places with him. That's why nobody in the book knows. But in the movie, no explanation is given. We just know this is a guy that escaped from Azkaban, and yet for some reason there's no mention of it. No one's talking about it. No one's saying anything. So stuff like that bothers me. And there's a whole thing, the subplot, which also involves an eliminated character, a house elf named Winky. See, Crouch Senior's family house elf was a female house elf named Winky. And she's a big part of this too. And I'll talk about it once the movie starts. But again, they take all the mystery out. They just they show him in the first scene at the house instead of there being like a mysterious, which he's not there in the book. He's not out yet because they accelerate that. And also at the World Cup, Harry just sees him. He's like, there's a man. A man just put the dark mark in the sky. You're not supposed to see that. Like, they just ruined the mystery. But anyway, I'm baffling too much. We'll have it when we get in. But again, they had to cut a lot of stuff. For instance, they did actually shoot scenes for this movie involving the Dursleys, and they cut it. And I get why they did it, but I guess they didn't tell the actors. I remember when the movie came out, the guy that played Vernon Dursley, he kind of complained to the press about it, like how they weren't even told that they were cut from the movie. So that's, if you're going to cut people, at least tell them that their scenes have been cut. So I'm not sure who the blame resides with there, but that's unfortunate. So there's actually 6 chapters in the book before the actual start of the movie. The movie starts, in the morning. They wake up to go to see the anyway, things are finally working better now. I think what I did helped. I think I just had too much shit open and audio's good, so I don't want to tempt fate anymore. So we will do a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and get into this movie finally. And then I can continue my babble about house elves and such. So, all right, if everybody feels up to this, we'll do a 3, 2, 1, and we will hit play. Here's the nice illustrated edition, which I'll try to, again, show some nice pictures of Jim McKay. It's really great stuff. This is a good one, showing the first task, the Hungarian horntail. Okay. Sure, I'll have to do my volume. It's always louder than I think it is. So this is the first book since the first one, because the other two to have a chapter that is not from Harry's point of view, although we do see that he sees some of it in his dream or whatever, right? But that was one of the things that made the book different immediately. As you're reading it, you realize it's not about Harry. So once again, there's information they can't really give here. They do show that the riddles, I think, are buried in this graveyard. Yeah, so there's the 3 riddles, which is Tom Riddle Sr. and his 2 parents. So I'm not sure how much they imply, but that's their house. I don't remember if the movie necessarily lets you know that that's their house. That's the house that Voldemort went to and killed them all in 50 years ago.
I don't think it does. I have to say, this is my favorite movie, I think, of the series.
Yeah, it's probably my second favorite movie, because it is still based on my favorite book, and I don't think they fuck it up completely or anything, right?
It's not my favorite book, though. I don't know if I have one.
Okay,
but I think 3. So I like 3 better. Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah, I know. I thought so, too.
Yeah, we're like the inverse, because, 3 is my favorite movie, and 4 is my favorite book.
Yeah. But, in my experience,
so that is.
Go ahead.
Oh no, guys! I was just gonna say that is the Riddle house. That's the house that Tom went to as a teenager, and murdered his father and his father's parents. And it's been sitting empty mostly since. It said like people would move in, but they would leave, because it had a weird reputation, right? 3 people found dead with no cause, so they thought it was kind of haunted, and so people stayed away. But the caretaker has stayed the same.
I don't think I remembered that. That's cool. No, I think it's my favorite. Yeah, probably has a lot to do with. I was gonna say with my experience going to the theater. I saw this opening night at Universal Studios, City Walk, in Hollywood. Awesome. So yeah, it was the midnight showing, and my friend Lindsay, his cousin, and her friends, they're big Harry Potter fanatics. I'll make a long story short, but they get the tickets so we could show up. We did this on the next movie too. And so, yeah, I was there at midnight. There's a group, and of course, there's all those Potterheads dressed up. I'm not, but I love the movie.
There he is.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so they just show him, which I think is a huge misstep. They're just like, here's another guy, and there's not going to be any mystery. There he is. Like, we don't know that's Barty Crouch Jr. I get that. We get that reveal in the Ponce of memory thing. I get that. But
and we don't know that anyway, he went, you know, he's using Polyjuice potion. But there is still mystery in this movie.
I don't know, though, because you don't watch the movie thinking necessarily there's anything wrong with the movie. You think the movie's a weirdo, right? But, so, because, like, one part, like I mentioned, the plan is too convoluted. Like, one part I accept, as even mentioned, is, like, he doesn't necessarily need Harry's blood. He just needs the blood of any enemy, which is pretty much anyone that's not his follower. And, like, Wormtail tries to point this out to him. It's like, it must be the boy. And I think they have that dialogue here. He says, and I accept that because that's the kind of person Voldemort is, right? It's the same thing with the Horcruxes. He could have made the Horcruxes much less conspicuous objects, but because of his ego and because of his attachment to things from his past, he felt that he had to make the Horcruxes significant objects, right? So I don't have a problem with that. But the plan itself, again, is completely stupid. So yeah, now we skipped over quite a bit. We're accelerating things here quite a bit. There's this whole thing there. The whole reason he had inside information about the World Cup was because Wormtail happened upon a ministry employee named Bertha Jorkins, who was known for being sort of like an airhead. So he kidnapped her, tortured her, and got information from her and murdered her. And even though she's been missing for weeks, most people at the ministry don't take it too seriously because she's been known to sort of disappear anyway. So that's why he has information on stuff like that. So we've also missed Bill and Charlie. They're just not here. Bill and Charlie should have been at the house. That would have been the first time Harry met Bill and saw that he was cool. But no, they don't do any of that. They're just, we're moving right along here. We're on our way to the World Cup. And
I know
we just met
a lot of the people I was with came out of this saying they chopped so much from the book. And since I didn't read it until after the words, I was fine with it. And honestly, even after reading, we'll get to some of it as you say it. A lot of the stuff I didn't mind that they cut out, even a couple of the major things that were throughout the whole book.
I mind very much the stuff about Crouch Jr. and Winky. I feel like you can't cut that. Other stuff, sure. Like, I don't mind that they've jumped and started it right here. I think that's okay. They went right from intro at the graveyard or at the Riddle House to this. That's okay. We don't really need Harry waking up at the Dursleys and having some annoying conversations with them. We don't need Harry sending a letter off to Sirius. So that's what he does. He writes to Sirius to tell Sirius about the scar hurting, the weird thing he sees. At this point, Sirius is in hiding in a faraway southern country. But then he gets upset because he realizes that this is more significant to Sirius than he thought. And Sirius says, I'm coming back. And he's like, I don't want him to come back. I don't want him to get caught. So there's this whole little thing where he tries to write letters to him. So one thing that's downplayed here, and again, I don't mind too much, is the massive undertaking it is to put on this event because they have to keep it secret from Muggles. So there's this whole thing where they actually have Muggles who are like employees, but they're like, it's kind of morally questionable because like they're modifying their memories. So they're just like, they think, oh, there's just a lot of campers. Like they're like, everybody has to start like a certain amount of miles away, and then they've got repellent charms, so Muggles can't see the big stadium in the area. But everyone arrives as Muggles. That's the point. And there's some jokes there that a lot of them don't know how to dress and stuff like that. And that's the thing that annoys me again about Crouch in this. When they have Crouch running around, Crouch should be dressed as a Muggle. The whole point of Crouch is like he's actually much better at it than the average wizard. Like he looks like a perfect Muggle. Like he says, like even Vernon would have been fooled by how perfect and meticulous Crouch looks in his suit. But in this, Crouch is just running around in robes, which is stupid. Not a huge deal, but again, Crouch is actually a super important character in a stealthy way, which is one of the things that's cool about the books. And that's another thing that they can't really show in this that they hint. Is there's a part like when the Goblet comes and Crouch shows up as an official and they're talking about how they're going to kick off the tournament. Harry notices that he looks way worse than when he saw him at the World Cup. He looks like he hasn't been sleeping. He looks really disheveled, and there's a big reason for that. But I guess they can't hit that. Here's something that doesn't make sense. So they're making it seem like being in the top is bad, but those are the best seats. In fact, they have the best
in the book.
Seats.
Isn't that the best seats?
Yeah, they're literally in the place with another character who was cut, by the way, Ludo Bagman. Ludo Bagman is the guy who's doing the commentary. They're literally in the top box center field They have the best seats. And here the Malfoys are making it seem like, you have shit seats because you're so poor, Weasley. It's like, no, like he got Ludo Bagman gave him these seats because he owed him a favor or something, which would have been like worth thousands and thousands of dollars, right? Imagine doing a favor for somebody and them giving you like a box seat at like the Super Bowl. Yeah. Like how much that would have been worth, you know? But anyway.
I love this scene. I love this scene.
Yeah. Okay, let's watch it and enjoy it. It's too bad they don't have they don't actually have the actual leprechaun, but they do, because there's a whole thing with the mascots, right? There's leprechauns for them, and there's a Vilas for the Bulgarians, and the leprechauns give. Now, it is too bad that we don't see any of the actual match.
Yeah.
Okay, so Crumb. I hate to say it, but Crumb is horrible casting. I don't know why they purposely went against it. They're like, let's just make him like a big jock lunkhead, which is exactly not how he is in the book, right? He's supposed to be
plays it well.
Guy who walks weird and has a hooked nose and duck-footed. He's supposed to be really awkward, but he's like cool on the broom. The whole idea is he's like magic on the broom, but on the ground he kind of sucks. But yeah, see, he's doing his Minister for Magic, but that's actually not who does it. It's Ludo Bagman, who they cut completely. So Ludo Bagman, for people who don't know the books, is a retired Quidditch player who is now like Ministry of Sport or something. And he's just like a big, like annoying, super immature guy. He's a good contrast for Crouch, because Crouch is ultra serious and businesslike. Ludo just wants to have fun. And another thing is, hey, remember how like eventually the twins just start up their own business despite coming from a poor family? It's because they get money from two different places. One is they bet on the match against Ludo. They bet the outcome that Ireland will win, but Crumb still gets to snitch what happens. So they also get the winnings that Harry gets for winning the tournament, because he doesn't want them. Harry tries to give it to Cedric's parents, and they say, no, you keep it. So then he doesn't want it, so he gives it to them. That's their startup money for the shop. But again, never mentioned, because there's, again, a little subplot going in here, which can't exist because Bagman's not here, is that the twins are acting really secretive and weird throughout the school year. It's because they're trying to figure out how to get the money out of Bagman, because he hasn't paid up. And they don't want to look like they're extorting him, but they want the money. But that's not it. Now that I can live with. But the thing is, during the match, Crouch was supposed to be there with them, but never came. And his house elf, Winky, was there. And she was sitting there saying she was saving his spot, but he never came. What's actually happening, massive spoilers, people, is that Crouch Jr. was there under an invisibility cloak. She felt bad for him. After he broke him out, he was still like under house arrest, even though he did his wife's dying wish of letting the boy out, or the young man out. He kept him in the house until eventually he turned the tables on Crouch, his father, put him under the Imperious Curse. Anyway, he hasn't done it yet. So right now he's indulging it. So there's a whole thing here is that during the match, he never comes up because his spot is actually filled by his invisible son. And during this whole brouhaha with the Death Eaters and stuff, he breaks away, during the match, he stole Harry's wand without Harry knowing. And then during this, he breaks away from Winky, throws up the Dark Mark. He does this because he's pissed off by the presence of the Death Eaters, because he thinks that they're phonies. He's mad that they aren't really truly devoted to Voldemort, and he thinks, I'll show them a real supporter, throws up the Dark Mark to scare them off. That's the point of it. Here, they just see him doing it. I hate this so much. It's just, there he is. He does it for no reason that we're given. He just does it, and Harry sees him. So I hate that. So actually, the truth is, he was invisible. Winky was covering for him, and at first they all accuse Winky of doing it because she has the wand. Harry's like, that's my wand, and they're like, okay, couldn't have been Harry Potter who did it. And anyway. And that's what really starts getting a bug up Hermione's ass about the fact that house elves are basically slaves, right? So they dropped that whole subplot about her trying to start a society to free them. And I've seen weird takes of that on the internet, saying the way Rowling presented it made it seem like Hermione's an idiot and she should just leave things alone because they like being enslaved. I don't know. I don't think that was Rowling's intention. Again, I think that there's a lot of mean-spiritedness in a lot of stuff that Rowling writes. I don't think it's there. And that's one of the things where I like the movies better than I think the books are better written, but there are little mean, immature things that Rowling does that nowadays have aged even worse. For instance, every time there's a scene with Dudley, she can't help but go on and on about how fat he is. Dudley can't do anything without his fatness being described with about 6 adjectives per paragraph. She really goes at Dudley for being fat. It's too far. And there's a part later, Rita Skeeter. We're going to see her. At one point, Rita Skeeter's hands are. Rita Skeeter is described as having large mannish hands. I mean, Jesus Christ, Rowling. We already know your feelings on certain things, so fuck. And I'm not going to get into a big thing, and I made a statement on Rowling, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just going to read a J.K. Rowling quote, and I'm not going to comment on it. I'm just going to read it. So this is something she said about the 4th book. She was asked about the stuff about Voldemort and his followers are prejudiced against Muggles, and also in Goblet of Fire, Hermione forms a group to liberate Hogwarts house elves who have been indentured servants so long. When asked why she explored this theme, Rowling replied, "Because bigotry is probably the thing I detest most. All forms of intolerance. The whole idea of that which is different from me is necessarily evil." So, okay, that's a very interesting statement for you to make, Joanne. Anyway, we'll move on here. So, there's Cho Chang, who, this is her first appearance in the movies, but it's not her first appearance in the books. Harry does play a match against her as she's the seeker for Ravenclaw in the 3rd book. So this is our first time seeing her.
Cho Chang.
Yeah, and it was already established that, Harry thought she was very pretty and had a thing for her. Blah, blah, blah.
My son Noah wanted
Cho
to
Chang.
make sure I showed this. Not a huge deal, but...
Oh, one of the Harry Potter... Oh, is that the 4th one specifically? Very nice.
1 through 4.
You say Noah?
Yeah.
You say Noah?
And my son.
So my mother came very close to naming me Noah. She likes to point that out.
Oh, cool.
That I was very close to being named Noah. That was like her second choice or something. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those Lego series are all really fun with Star Wars and the Harry. They all have a good sense of humor. They're all fun stuff. I've dabbled in them. I haven't played too much, but
I the Star Wars, Harry Potter, yeah, quite a bit of them. I did get tired of them after, because I played a lot of the early ones. Both of. I have the other Harry Potter one. I guess I'll save that for when we're on years 5 through 8 or 7.
Yeah. I have my own midnight story, by the way, but I think it comes in with the next one. If not, it's probably good. It is a midnight Harry Potter film.
It's funny. My son enjoyed the games, but I haven't got him immersed in these movies yet. We've tried a couple times, but I think it's going to have to happen again soon. Try again.
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting, we talk about this a lot, like when you're exposed to something, like what age you are. And sometimes things don't mean as much to you. And then like a couple years later, something you really, Yeah. And kids, of course, change so quickly, right?
Oh yeah,
I don't have kids, but I know like their interest just changed so quickly. They're all about this, and you would know it better. You think about like what you got them for Christmas. What they asked you for Christmas last year, and then this year it's like they moved on.
6 months or less than a year later. Yeah, they could be totally different.
Yeah,
but it's if you remember as a kid, those time periods felt a lot longer too. 6 months was a lot longer time.
It was, for sure. So I also don't like this scene. I don't like how they do this. I don't like this introduction to the schools. I think it's poorly done. I also have no idea why they want to imply the Durmstrang students are all boys and the Beauxbaton students are all girls. That's not true either.
Yeah, that's
and there's
right.
no reason for it. It's not like that. It's not like that. Like makes anything better or simpler for the movie. It does nothing. So I don't get that really. This is the year all the boys have long hair. I forgot. Not just Harry, Ron, the twins. Cedric stands out for them, I think, by having a more neat haircut. This, of course, is what basically got Robert Pattinson, on the map. Is what got him into the biz. I hate this. I think this is really stupid. I hate this intro. They do their little choreo. I don't like this at all. I think it's very, it's embarrassing. They like to show Ron's puberty. He goes, bloody hell. Looking at their asses. There we go. But yeah, no, I don't like that. I think it's very lame. The Durmstrang one's almost as lame. They're both pretty fucking lame. But no, there's boys and girls from both school.
Yeah, I don't know why they made that choice. I guess it doesn't really matter, but
and remember how I always said, like, as far as casting things go, sometimes it's not their fault. It's just mine entirely. Because, like, Lupin, right? Like, Lupin, basically, I really like him. He's my favorite character. And how they cast him is more or less in line with what he's described in the book. I just personally imagined him differently. Same thing with Moody. I have a very specific idea of what Moody looked like that has no way resembles this. But that's not the movie's fault. They're pretty much going by Weiser. So there's a big surprise, right? Crumb, oh my god, the world-famous Quidditch player is still in school. It's Crummy. Here's Ron's room. Burrow, looking quite orange.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have to give him an even more dramatic entrance. Yeah, Bagman and Crouch. Here's some campsites at the Quidditch World Cup. Very nice, very nice. Maybe a bit of a glare there, sorry, people. But
no,
again, these are really great to like. They're very hyper. What really? I mean, they're simple things like portraits and stuff, but these are the really fun ones in these books. Is that McKay is so great at detail, right? Like when he shows like Nocturne Alley and specific places. All these little details. Here's the referee from the World Cup. He's an Egyptian. Just trying to catch up to where we actually are in the movie. See, we missed, like, there was actually, I know it would make the movie, like, rated R if they had what actually happened at the World Cup, because they weren't just, Death Eaters weren't just, like, crashing through the site. They actually had one of the park employees and his wife and kid like dangling in the air above them, and they even like knocked her shirt off and laughed at her. So yeah, that would have been like nudity and stuff. So I understand why that's not in the movie. It's a bit too dark. Speaking of dark, here's everybody's favorite sad boy, Malfoy. Oh, look how you've aged, Malfoy. Dark and brooding. Alistair Moody. And again, there are hints that something's up with Moody, because we find out when, before they leave the World Cup, in talking to Ron's dad, that they mention that Moody had called in saying like somebody had attacked him at his home the morning before, and it set off all these dustbins or something. It turns out that's true. That was like, people are like, he's overly paranoid. Like everybody knows it's Moody, but that was actually Crouch attacking him and subduing him. So there are little hints. I'm not saying I would have known reading it the first time. I didn't. I'll say, there's a part in this that's not in the book at all that was driving me nuts. It's when Harry was like, looking at the Marauders map, and it showed Barty Crouch running around after we know that Crouch Jr. has died. Because it doesn't just make us distinguish on the map. You could say, maybe that's a problem. Why doesn't the map distinguish between senior and junior? It doesn't, though. It just says Barty Crouch, right? I remember like being so caught up in the mystery of that. I was like, how is Crouch running around the castle if he's dead, But again, that mystery element is just not present here. So he yells at them all, and I know we've talked about this Dumbledore. I don't blame the actor, but I don't understand why he is so less chill. Like, he just yelled silence at everybody, and we're gonna get to the part where, of course, how Harry, his name comes out of the cup. Like, watch Dumbledore's reaction. It is crazy. It is nothing like how it's described in the book. She even uses the word calmly. It's, Harry, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire, Harry? Dumbledore asked calmly. In this, he's wild-eyed. He grabs Harry. He's like, did you do it? It's like, what the hell is going on? Why are you making Dumbledore so rattled? It's just not his. It's just, I just don't understand choices like that.
I think it is, though. But then again, not reading the book.
Well, I mean, we all know that Dumbledore is like a calm,
he has those moments.
Calm, chill guy.
He is.
I understand him having I understand that he can get angry, stuff like that. There's Karkaroff.
Yeah.
Who was sort of a red herring in both the movie and the book, right? He's a former Death Eater, who we find out pretty early, and he's acting weird. He's acting weird because his dark mark is getting stronger. It's showing up more because of I guess Voldemort throwing him apart. Moving really fast, we've just jumped past quite a bit to get to the Mad Eye movie chapter. We're not going to do any, like, Hagrid's care for magical creatures thing, which was a big thing in the last movie. Gone, kaput, doesn't exist in this movie, even though obviously it's still there. I mean, this is mostly the same.
You know, were you mad because that they left the house elf stuff out? Because I'm not. I am actually so
only Winky. No, I don't. No. I don't mind that they left out Hermione's little crusade. I don't mind that they left that out. But I mind that they left out Winky. Winky, to me, plays a pivotal role in the story. She's part of the reason that Crouch Jr. is able to do what he does. And it makes sense because even though Winky's good, house elves, as part of their bargain or their deals, they have to keep their master's secrets. They can't tell on them, no matter what, even if they're good. Because that's another thing, too, because all house elves are cut out of this. Because actually, Dobby himself is employed at the school. In this, they make Neville show Harry how to get gillyweed, but it's not. The whole thing is the fake Moody Crouch Jr. tried to get it so that Harry would be steered into Neville, who was given the books about it, but it didn't work. So then at the end, by stroke of luck, Dobby just shows up and gives him the stuff. So Dobby's not in the movie at all either. They just removed Dobby. So there's no Dobby, there's no Winky, there's no what's his name, who I mentioned, Ludo Bagman. I don't feel it's right to eliminate those characters. Ludo Bagman, maybe. Like, you don't need him having a bet with the twins. I get you. That's not essential. But I don't know. He seemed like a cool character. That's just Brill doing that to Ron. So this is where it's weird. Like, things like this get extended. Like, they cut, and then you get into stuff like this that's extended. Like, the first task, like, it's like, who read the book of, like, Harry, like, trying to outmaneuver a dragon? It was like, no, that's not good enough. And like had to punch it up. But that's what they do. They're just like, punch it up. Have the dragon break free. Have it fly all around the castle and nearly murder everyone. Like, they really show that they have no control over anything in the tournament in the movie. In the book, you always believe, like Harry could get killed, but nobody else could. But in this, it's just like anybody could die. Like the Triwizard Tournament presents a risk to everybody. And also, this has nothing to do with the movie or book. It's just what it is. It's like, after the first task, you realize, like, it's not that good of a tournament for an audience. Because the last two tasks take place where an audience can't see. Nobody can see the bottom of the lake, and nobody can see in the maze. They just sit in stands and wait for the result. It's kind of boring. After they retreated to the first task, where they get to see the champions dueling dragons. After that, it's like, well, just sit here and wait and find out what happened after the fact. Right. So this is important, but again, they do nothing with it. It's supposed to be important because we eventually find out that Neville's parents were tortured by Bellatrix Lestrange. They're not dead; they're still alive, but they've lost their minds. They're in St. Mungo's. But that's not mentioned in this. It's mentioned in the next movie.
Okay, but I couldn't remember if it was or if I had read that.
Yeah. But I can't remember either the exact order of information. I know that Harry finds out at some point during this year. I can't remember how he finds out. Because the whole thing is when they run into them at St. Mungo's in the fifth one, and Ron and Hermione see, they're like, oh, he had no idea. And Harry's like, I knew. But I can't remember how Harry, but he did. And then, since they don't even do St. Mungo's in the fifth one, because the fifth one they just hack to pieces. It's the longest book and the shortest movie, which is all you really need to know. That'll be a fun one when we get to it. But it's like, is that Neville himself just gives the exposition. He just says, a dark wizard named Bellatrix Lestrange tortured my parents. Like, he just says it. It's just not really Neville's style. So they have all the same things. They saw the curses. They're all talking about it. Blah blah blah. We do show that he's trying to reach out to Neville and try to be nice to him. But again, it's to steer Harry because I guess he already knows what the second task is too. I don't know if he's supposed to or not. He's just a teacher. Yeah, Hermione's a lot more upset here than in the book. What's funny is I've also talked about the theme of like the movies like doing Ron dirty by making him dumb and taking away his best moments and giving them Hermione. It's hilarious that this movie actually openly make comments on that. We'll get to it when we get to it. At least they do show that some time has passed. Because the whole point is like it's a few weeks before the but that's the other, yeah. So they move things around a little bit because it's not until October 30th that anybody even I think shows up, and then the 31st. So it's all on the same day. So I don't know when this is supposed to be movie wise, because in the book they've already been going to classes for almost 2 full months before the other 2 schools show up. And then within that 48-hour period is when the people would enter their names. This is more or less the same, except for some reason they fight, which I guess is kind of funny. In the book, they just laugh it off. Also, Lee Jordan was going to do it. He was with them, and they just got thrown out first, and he never attempted. That's a small change. I get that. No big deal there. But technically, all 3 of them are going to do it. Pathetically dim-witted. Yes, of course. That's what would fool Dumbledore's head. Pathetically dim-witted. You guys don't put much thought into stuff sometimes. I don't think they even get their names in the other. They just get across the line for a second. Same thing, they get the beards, blah, blah, but for some reason they attack each other here, which I guess is kind of amusing. Now, does Dumbledore yell here?
I don't think so.
Something happens here. Let's see, they're fighting. Something stops them. Or they just peter out, I guess. Okay, they just peter out. Oh, because here comes Crumb, that's why.
Yeah.
Because Dumbledore's actually in the room suddenly, and he's amused. He's like, I did try to warn you. Okay, we get it. Hermione's into Crumb. It's very subtle. They're planting the seeds for that way too early.
Yeah, this movie to me, I think, is also where I felt. I mean, the third one went darker, but like this, this really goes dark.
Well, yeah, right.
This truly sets the tone. I can see where you get confused. Yeah, get confused as far as the directors, because they did have to me, a very similar tone for the rest of the movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see how Chris Columbus would have tackled some of the darker stuff. Not saying he couldn't do it. I'm sure he could. So this plays out more or less the same, except again, Dumbledore's reaction in the movie is bizarre. He freaks out, which just seems very out of character.
Maybe it's to really show, without being super descriptive, that this is a dangerous tournament.
That it's die. Yeah, I guess that it is very serious.
Rather than just keep saying it over and over, kind of show how much.
Yeah.
It's just
right. So speaking of the Vila who are not present in this movie, Ron is so enchanted by her, he thinks she's part Vila. Then you find out she is. There's a chapter called The Weighing of the Wands that they do sort of half-assedly in this. Basically, it's where Rita Skeeter shows up and they do the pictures. That's actually during The Weighing of the Wands, where Ollivander comes in to test all their wands before the thing, and he comments on her wand that has a Vila hair in it, and she says that was from my grandmother's. You find out she is part Vila, which is part of the reason why she's so dazzlingly beautiful. This is dumb too. His little speech in the front. He's like suddenly Dumbledore's a hype man. The vessel of victory. I mean, okay, sure. Suddenly the Goblet of Fire is being overshadowed. That was another thing Rowling talked about. Like for a long time, she waffled on the title. It was going to be Harry Potter and the Doom Wizard Tournament, then eventually the Triwizard Tournament, and then she switched it back to Goblet for the title of the actual book. But Harry Potter and the Triwizard Tournament probably makes more sense plot-wise. But because the Goblet of Fire plays a big role, but once it's done, right?
I'm there.
It takes his name, done. Yeah, and it's over. But I mean, I don't have a problem with it. Goblet of Fire.
It's a cooler name, though.
Point. Yeah, Triwizard Cup or Triwizard Tournament. Yeah. See, he's already yelling. Like he's yelling for him to get up there, and then he's gonna grab him. You know. Like that's you put your name in the Goblet of Fire. Yeah, I really don't like it. Like everyone else's reaction is right. They're all like, "What the fuck," you know. And there's plenty of Hogwarts students that don't really like Harry and think he's a show off. And as it's pointed out, the Hufflepuffs take it especially hard because Cedric's like the only glory they ever get, and they feel like he's really stealing it. Here's the ferret moment, which looks so sinister in the book. The fake Moody turning Malfoy into a ferret. Uh-huh. Moody looks almost more like a hag than a wizard. I like this room. This little antechamber they go into to wait for their instructions. I like the room a lot. This is cool. You know, it's not described very much in the book. Yeah, and again, I mean, it's true. The others are mad. The others are mad because they think that it's cheating and, you know, it's giving Hogwarts an unfair advantage. Yeah, see, this is not at all. Like, she does say that, but of course. And Kakarov is right on here. He's just like, you seem to have given this a lot of thought, Moody. It's like, yeah, I just explained exactly how I did it. You know, and it's like he's above suspicion because he's the famous Auror, a word that did not exist in the third book or movie, despite the fact that they talked endlessly about trying to catch Sirius. I don't want to be too hard though, because there is lots of stuff, as I said, that doesn't get much credit, like that gets mentioned in books that are earlier that come on. For instance, during that weighing of the wands. When Ollivander looks at Crumb's wand, he points out that the wand must have been made by Grulukovich. Grulukovich does become important. He's tied to the whole thing with the Elder Wands, that whole plot in the last one.
Yeah.
He's like the last known person to know where it was or something. So he does get mentioned back here. So let's see exactly how this conversation between Ron and Harry goes, because I don't remember exactly how the movie ends. We all know Ron's pissed, but we're not there yet. Oh, so here's a little extra scene. Because again, this is not Harry's point of view, right? So we wouldn't actually see this in the book. The book mostly follows the rule of not straying from Harry's point of view, except for like if you're doing like a prologue like they did for this book and movie of the whole. And again, Harry's tied to that because he dreams at least part of it or sees part of it in his mind. I don't mind though. Again, I'm not saying that the movies need to rigidly stick to Harry's point of view. I'm just pointing out this is some extra stuff that is not in the book at all, which I don't object to. It's good to get other points of view. Potter is a boy, not a piece of meat. This does help a little because it does show Dumbledore's overarching plan, because Dumbledore at this point already has his suspicions about the existence of the Horcruxes and that Harry, in fact, is one of them. It's revealed like very late on that, you know, Dumbledore is aware of a lot more than we knew, and he knows how Harry is at even more danger than we are given to believe.
Well, he has the diary in his possession at this point, too, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if the diary, how many answers it can give after Harry, like, fucked it up. But I mean, yeah, I mean, he knew everything Harry knew about it. Harry would have told him. So this is funny. This fits, like, it is true. See, that's me, Ron Weasley, Harry Potter's stupid friend. He doesn't say it in the book, but it's good that he says it here because that is how he is portrayed in the movies. So they're just like, that's right. That's what we've reduced Ron to. Harry's a stupid sidekick. So they show some self-awareness here. This is a longer conversation.
But you still have Steve Kloves or Steve Clovis as a screenwriter in this one, which does change in the next one.
He's the most responsible for giving lots of Ron's best moments to Hermione. This is the first time there's real conflict between Ron and Hermione. So, again, this is supposed to be the weighing of the wands. It's not just supposed to be publicity, but they skipped the weighing of the wand stuff. They couldn't get Ollivander, I guess. They just go right to this. And, I mean, she's more or less better. Again, there's a subplot about her, too, because she starts writing all these stories. And, of course, they're mostly wrong, but they are based on real things, and nobody can figure out how she's getting the information. Do you remember that? Do you remember what the source of that is?
No.
Okay, so she's an unregistered animagus. She can turn into, like, a beetle. So she uses that to spy on them. And there's various hints of it again. Like, there's a part where, like, Hermione has, like, has the beetle in her hair that Crumb brushes out of her hair after he rescues her from the lake. There's a few different things where a beetle is mentioned. And you find out. And Hermione manages to blackmail her so she won't write. Because, you can't be an animagus and not register with the government.
That's right. I totally forgot about that.
So Hermione blackmails her at the end after she catches her so that she won't write any more nasty stories. But they removed that from this. What's interesting is in the original draft of the book, Skeeter didn't exist at all, and I don't know how it would have worked, but Rowling had created a character who would have been a first-year Hogwarts student who was related to the Weasleys, but she came from a family that didn't like. They were related, but they didn't like the Weasleys, and they kind of looked down on them. And she was supposed to somehow move some of the stuff that Rita moves, but I don't know how. And then Rowling dropped it because she's like, I guess an 11-year-old wouldn't be privy to certain things, blah blah blah. And I had to go with Rita. I don't know exactly how that works. So this is more or less the same. I mean, they adjust it, but the whole thing of the quick quotes, quill, writing down things. Again, I get it's artistic license, but if you want me to point it out, I mean, you don't need to be a former journalist to point out that, like, Rita would not have a job, or that if she did, that the Daily Prophet is a fucking rag. Because it mentions, like, she always gets stuff wrong. In the articles she writes here, we only get the bits about Harry. But the overall thing is Cedric doesn't get mentioned at all. The other two's names are misspelled, and then there's all the misinformation and misquoting by Harry. Like, why? Nobody does anything about it. Like, I get that Harry is under a lot of pressure and stuff, but Hermione could, like, at least write a letter and be like, you guys need to get your facts straight. Like, none of this is right. But again,
at the same time, they make the Daily Prophet like the mainstream paper of the Wizarding world, and the Quibbler, and the Quibbler is the rag.
And yet they employ people like Rita, who just, who is a shit reporter. Yeah. So, yeah. See, little unsaid things here. I don't mind that they put that here. But one of the things is he can't use Hedwig anymore. It seems that I couldn't use sending Hedwig. So it's the other way around. But anyway, he has to start using school owls to send messages. So he's going to have that whole thing about talking to him in the fire. Which we didn't see in the third movie, did we?
No.
But it's in the, I believe it's in the third book. I'm starting to get my books mixed up. Because I know that Harry's not surprised in the book by this. Like, he understands what's happening. Like, he's not like, whoa, he's in the fire. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, it had happened before. Because, yeah, here it's like he doesn't have an idea. Plus, he's not alone. The whole thing is, like, these are some of his worst days at Hogwarts. He's a pariah. Nobody likes him. The only person that sticks by him is Hermione during this. So Hermione's actually with him for this. I'm not sure why she's not there. Yeah, they don't actually show him his misquotes though, which are pretty good. Like at one point, she has him saying, like, "I get my strength from my parents, and I think they'd be proud of me. That's why I entered, for the glory of my family." You know, he's saying all this bullshit. Here's a nice shot of Beauxbatons arriving in their large carriage with the gigantic Pegasus, or Pegasi, perhaps.
So cool.
Yeah, so this is about as far as I got when I was trying to reread the book and kept getting interrupted and derailed because I was in a big Star Wars mode, unfortunately, for like the last month and a half. So this is about as far as I got in the book. So I made a lot of notes and stuff, but now we have to go by my recollections. Here's a much more accurate Crumb, by
the way. Oh, well, let's see. I've got like used to the jock.
Yeah, he's not a jock at all. The whole point is he like transforms when he's on a broom. And suddenly he's sublime, but he's not particularly athletic or anything walking around. He's not big.
See, I don't know if I'd said this before. So when reading the books, in moment of descriptions where the characters didn't match with the actors, I almost just skipped that part in my head, just glazed over it. Like Dudley was blonde, right?
And there's the last name for me. Yeah, as I said, like for 4 years, I had versions of characters in my head before any of the movies existed, right? For more than 4 years. For about 4 years. For about 4 years and about four books, I had descriptions of characters that, I didn't have anything else to go on. And then the movies more or less did most of them pretty close, but not all. And as I said, there are times even when they go against casting that I actually liked that decision, like with Slughorn. I've said a few times in the sixth movie, Professor Slughorn is nothing physically like he's described to look, but I like it. I like that actor and I like that performance, so it doesn't bother me. But with something like Crumb, I don't get it. I liked the contrast that Crumb was not supposed to be like a jock or anything. Like he was supposed to be kind of to be underestimated in a way. But also, like Crumb has like this really antisocial personality where he's like scowling and not talking to people and stuff. That's not really present in this. And this is just sort of
maybe because I don't know, cinematically they already kind of had sort of more of those type of characters than any jocks in Harry Potter world.
Right, so here's an invented scene. This is just for the movie because again,
what you were talking about earlier,
comes from like it is true that like what's his name would be reading that stuff and into it, but he's not hanging out with Harry. Harry does not hang out with him. And this is a funny bit, but I can't remember exactly how it's worded. Because, it's like somebody said this one, blah, 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 it's some really indirect way of getting, of letting him know to check out where the dragons are. Also, speaking of the ferret scene didn't even happen yet, so that's weird too. Because the ferret scene happened ages ago, way before any task stuff. They're going to combine two different confrontations with Malfoy into one. The first one is the ferret one. The second one is the same dialogue, but instead of the ferret thing, Moody's not there. Malfoy and Harry hurl curses at each other. Both are deflected and miss, and Harry curses Goyle, and Malfoy curses Hermione. And the big thing is, it's not important, but it is one of Snape's meanest moments because he's the first teacher that shows up. And the way the curse worked on Hermione was she was always known for having kind of large front teeth. Is that her front teeth kept getting bigger and bigger, and she was like a beaver. And like they were like, look what Malfoy did. And Snape looks down at her and goes, I don't see any difference. Like he's so cool. And Hermione just runs off crying. So Charlie is nowhere to be seen, despite the fact that he should be here with the dragons. Just like Charlie and Bill and Percy. Again, Percy's disappearance, I think, causes problems too. Percy's in the first 3 movies. and then he's going to be physically in this movie, but unless you have like a really good memory for faces, you might even not know why he's there, because he has no dialogue and it's not explained. The whole point is Percy, having graduated the year before, is now working at the Ministry, and he becomes Crouch's personal assistant. So after Crouch gets too sick to continue, and even before he dies, Percy replaces him as one of the judges. And we do see him in the movie, but if you're just seeing the movie and you didn't read the book, you might be like, who is that young guy? And if you remember well enough that it's Percy, you just might be like, what the fuck is he doing here? But it's because he's... Yeah, but he's not now. This is after he's graduated, right? But that's the whole thing. His job is... It sucks that we don't really get to see the other dragons even here. Like, I don't mind that we don't see the other dragon encounters, because, again, we're following Harry's point of view, and in the books it's the same thing. He's not allowed to see. He just has to stay in the tent and hear about it afterwards. And I get it. What's the effects budget for this movie to have 4 fucking dragons? I don't know. But I wish we could at least get a look at them from far away.
Well, I was going to say that was the thing with at least Percy. I feel like I read or saw even a behind the scenes somewhere years ago that the actor who played Percy said it was like he'd either get more time in this movie or the next movie. In the next movie, he would get more than he would have even in this one. So he chose, because it's a matter of, I think, time, budget, paying even
It's just weird that it just seems to me that like they should have just cut him entirely, because his presence in the movie is just confusing because there's no exposition around it. You don't know why he's there, and you might even wonder, maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I just think it looks like it. Well, he has no dialogue, and
you don't know. It doesn't really affect it, and I guess for fans of the books and hardcore fans, they are gonna know whether he says something or not. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'm making excuses because it's my favorite film.
Well, as I said, I think it would just cut him entirely. I think would have made more sense. That's what I'm saying. Like I would rather him cut entirely than the way he's used here, because it's kind of confusing.
But even as just mainly a movie fan, even though I read the books, I forget sometimes what the little I remember from the books, or if I've seen it in a movie. But going back, even though I know it's him now when I see him, even though he doesn't have any lines and he's kind of a background, but I know that's Percy now.
The background is he started working. He started working at the Ministry, and he was Crouch's personal assistant. Yeah, so this is way later. This all happens way before any of this. He has 2 different ones. One where he says some stuff and tries to curse him, and the whole thing comes. But now he's using that whole thing about his father. That's the later one. But yeah, there's no Hermione and Goyle getting cursed. They just do the first one with the second one's dialogue, more or less. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just, because it's not, it doesn't really change anything. I'm just saying, narratively, this happens much earlier. Because one of the things I think it's supposed to sort of establish Moody's weird character. We get the Hungarian Horntail for Harry, the Chinese Fireball, or possibly, can't remember who gets what. The green one's the Norwegian, no, the Swedish Short Snout. Yeah. Hungarian Horntail, Swedish Short Snout, Chinese Fireball, and the something green, the Welsh green. I believe the Welsh green goes to Fleur, Hungarian Horntail goes to Harry, Swedish Short Snout, I believe, goes to Cedric, and the Chinese Fireball goes to Trump. It doesn't really matter, because in the book and movie, we don't get to see it. Here is the Swedish Short Snout as depicted in the book. Because they are all different colors. There is this brown. They are brown, red, green, and blue.
You do get to see them as their little tokens, though, don't you? All 4 of them?
Yeah, you get to see that, yeah. Yes, they picked them. That's the early indication. Which, I find it's a fine. I mean, that is in the book, and it works. At least you get to see them. And as I said, it is true. We only get to see Harry's scene in the book. I just wish I could have seen them maybe from far away. It's only a small thing.
Oh, I get you, though. I mean, book and movie, I wish
Here they are, far as Harry glimpsed them in the woods from sort of far off. He saw them that night with Hagrid.
I like how they did it in the movie. I mean, this
is more or less the same as in the book, where he's like, "You're allowed a wand." Where he tells him, "You're allowed a wand," because he does mention that thing about flying. Because he says, like, play to your strengths or whatever. Again, it's hard to remember because the whole thing was like he was able to talk to Sirius after finding that out, because he was going to ask Sirius, for advice on how to pass the dragon, and Sirius was going to tell him, and then Sirius had to go very suddenly. And Sirius basically later tells him what his advice would have been is actually the strategy that Crumb tried to use against his dragon, which was like to hit it in the eye. There's a lot of dragons. I guess dragons are pretty cool. So there's quite a few dragon things. There's the Horntail again, letting off some flame. Fair flyer. I don't care dragon. Yeah, but literally the chapter right after that is the House Elf Liberation Front, which is Ron's sarcastic name for what Hermione's trying to accomplish. No, I don't have any problem with that being eliminated. We don't need that subplot, but I do think Winky absolutely should be in the movie, because Winky and Crouch. I don't like how Crouch is just some guy that we see at the house. He shouldn't be there. He should not have gotten out of bonds yet. And I don't like that he just strolls casually in the middle of the destruction and throws up the thing. Like, no. It is cool though. Like, it's never really explained too well, like what their cool, like special, I don't know, like athletic robes look like. Because I remember. Do you remember like the first movie poster for this? It's cool. It's like a shot of Harry in that, like from the back. It looks. Yeah. It's like, it looks so badass.
I actually remember that more than the actual poster, because it was a big banner in this theater I was in.
Oh, nice. That's a cool coat too, Ryan.
I actually worked on a commercial for the DVD for release for this, and it was actually had a little scene.
No, go ahead. Sorry, keep going.
Well, just the commercial I worked on actually has a little scene. I think you can find it on YouTube, but where these kids are in this dungeon-looking classroom, and this kid, I don't know, he puts on a pair of Harry Potter type glasses, and it's talking about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire DVD. But I worked on it.
But yeah, I showed the old DVD. So this is the first one I own on as Blu-ray. It's the only one. They released a bunch called Ultimate Editions. This is the only one I have, the Ultimate Edition. These are big, thick things with multiple discs and stuff in them.
Uh-huh. Wow.
I got this at like Costco, I think, just before Christmas. But yeah, I think they all got this treatment. This is the only one I have. This actually has like the cool hologram front. You can't see it can't really see it on the camera, but it gives off like the cool semi 3D look. But yeah, these are really big.
That's like bigger than I think my box set of the 8 movies.
Yeah. So I think they all got this treatment. They're all called Ultimate Edition. This is the only one I have of that. But I did watch a lot of the cool extra stuff on it, although not recently, which is too bad. I like how he says, ooh, here, watch. Okay, so sweet source now. Watch what we missed it. I love that line. It's the only time Crouch seems to break character. Where he goes, the Chinese fireball, he goes, ooh. It's like, what?
I know that.
That's not Crouch. That's not Crouch's character. But anyway. I allow it because it's funny. It is funny. And the actor is good. He's like definitely the right guy for the role. Well, you and I are really synced up, which is pretty cool.
Are you hearing it? Is it messing things?
Barely. I don't think it's a big deal. So I'm not going to complain too much, but I really don't think they needed to make this so much bigger. And I know it says every time there's an action thing in the book, they want to make it bigger, and sometimes that's not wrong. Like even in the last one, like when Harry first goes for the ride on Buckbeak, it's not much of a ride in the book. He just sort of circles around the pavilion and comes down. But in that, they have him go out over the lake and everything, go woohoo! And in this dragon's going to break free, and no one comments on it or cares. They should be like, that should not have happened. Like that should be the massive story Rita Seeker is writing. Like, I thought these people knew what they were doing, but a fucking full-grown dragon got loose, and only by the grace of God was it focused on Harry, and decided not to, barbecue dozens of students and spectators. Yeah. This is the big set piece of the movie. The movie has multiple set pieces. This is the main one. It's like dragon fight. It's like, that it's chained up. That's not good enough. How about it breaks free of his chains and they literally fly all over Hogwarts? Like, wouldn't that make the people who did the tournament look really incompetent? Yeah, I guess it would, but whatever. Just nobody comments on it after, I think is really
No, I agree. I lean more towards what you're thinking. I'm trying to make an excuse for it somehow, though. Like maybe I don't know,
in a way, I guess it's better that
things they're protecting. Is the dragon like maybe?
I just think it's
magically under a spell to only chase Harry.
Who knows? Because, I mean, yes, this is dangerous enough. Like, you can see how, like, a stray jet of flame could get somebody. But still, I'll be like, okay, that's acceptable risk for the wizard world. They're always doing dangerous shit. That's acceptable. The idea that it literally breaks free and can just fly around wherever it wants, and nobody, like, comments afterwards, like, oh, Jesus, that shouldn't have happened. Like, that's a massive security thing. It's like, I don't think that the wizarding world is a very litigious world. Like, I don't think, like, lawsuits really happen. We never hear anything about, even though we hear about laws a lot, we never hear about lawyers. The closest thing that happens to that in this world I can think of is when Harry, has that hearing at the start of the 5th book in the movie, for his improper use of magic. And there's no lawyer there either, right? He has to just go up and plead his case in front of this big group of people. There's no lawyers involved. There doesn't seem to be any lawyers in the wizarding world. Most people are like, that's a good step. That's the joke, right? Yeah. It's like, they're more advanced than us. But let's enjoy this. It might be a little silly and over the top and overblown, but it is still fun to watch. So I'm not trying to be a total killjoy.
No, these are good points, though. They're interesting to think about.
But I mean, I get what they do. As I said, sometimes I think it did help. Like, legitimately in the second movie, the spider escape sequence is better than the book. And I don't think it's, like, overdone over the top. It makes more sense than in the book. In the book, they kind of get away too easily. I like that in the movie, it's more difficult. To me, that actually did. It's not just them saying, oh, we need bigger, we need more action. To me, it follows logic, too. It's like the spiders wouldn't just give up. They keep going after it. So there I thought it made a lot of sense. Here you can argue about whether it makes sense or whether, this would put a complete halt to the tournament or whatever, whatever. We can enjoy it. We get to see, the fantastic architecture of the castle. We get to see Harry flying. And of course, the drama here.
Well, like you said, I think he said, I wish we could have seen the others in the group fight their dragons.
I mean, again, I'm torn on that.
Shorten
on
the
hand,
scene.
Like, yeah. Because on the one hand, I'm like, well, good for them. They're following the book in that, like, we're following Harry's perspective. But then again, the whole point of the movies is that they don't always follow that rule. Sometimes they show us stuff that's outside Harry's perspective, and I think that you might as well do that, right? Just so you can make a difference. You know me, I like to adapt things tightly and closely. But if you have an opportunity to do something that wouldn't really work in the book, or just, like that, I don't think, as I said before, like, that's how they did, like, the show Game of Thrones, which is a whole thing. But I will say, like, even if you watch the first season of Game of Thrones, there are scenes in there that would never appear in the book, because for people that don't know, the books are all point of view chapters. Every chapter is from a single person's point of view, and that's what we get. So if somebody doesn't have a point of view chapter, and, if we had two characters, like, there's scenes in the book, there's scenes in the first season of that show where King Robert talks to Cersei. That would never happen in the book. Neither of them are point of view characters. And there's also a scene between Littlefinger and Varys. That would never happen in the book. But I don't mind, because it's kind of cool to get some extra stuff about those characters. So that's kind of the same way I feel here, like you said. Like, why not go outside of Harry's point of view so we get some extra action? because he's the main guy, but the other contestants, they're doing shit too. Anyway. So yeah, now we've reached the point where I did not get this far in my recent reread of the book, so I'll have to go on my memory lap or stuff. There he does finally decide, now that people are like really on his side now. And of course, Ron winds up on his side too, because Ron's like, yeah, I believe you now. And you should have. See, there's a problem. I'm going to be a dick. The Patil twins are not both in Gryffindor. Only Pavarti is in Gryffindor. Padma is a Ravenclaw.
No, I think we've talked about that at previous movies.
Yeah. Oh, I talk about this a lot. I say I don't like how the movies, for convenience, put people in houses they're not part of, or just put them in places they're not supposed to be. Like, it's an established fact that that Harry's year of Gryffindors always have to do potions, and then later, once by the third year, care for magical creatures. They do both of those classes with the Slytherins. But for the sake of drama in the movies, they just stick the Slytherins in all over the place, including, although, again, and that's another thing that might make you wonder. People heard me bitch in the third movie. Why are the Slytherins in Defense Against the Dark Arts here with Lupin? And suddenly they're not there this year. We didn't see them in the Moody thing, so that kind of stuff annoys me a lot. But I don't know. I thought it was interesting too. I think it's a good point to make. Yeah, all the Weasleys, they're a family. They're all in Gryffindor, but that doesn't always mean being related means you're in the same thing. Look at the whatever they call it, the Patil twins. They're twins, but they're in different houses. But in this, they put them both in, and we're going to see them more. The two, where they just walk up like, "Hi, Harry," but it's like Padma would not be there. Padma is a Ravenclaw. It's not a big deal. I get it, but those are things I like. I don't know. I know I focus on things. It's the same thing like I saw, again, talking about something like Song of Ice and Fire and how they did Game of Thrones. I didn't like how in Game of Thrones, eventually they just sort of stopped bothering with who was in the Kingsguard. I always thought it was important to know who was in the Kingsguard, and the books always let you know. As soon as somebody dies, they're replaced by somebody, and that has effects on the plot. In the show, they just kind of moved away from that. By like the later seasons, you have no idea who the fuck's in the Kingsguard or if any of that matters at all. Anyway, that's the whole thing. There's Cho. Nice. Her name's what? Katie Lum? I think it's Korean name. Check on that.
That sounds right.
Katie.
I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but you said it, I think.
I mean, people are so obsessive, even more obsessive than me. I know people are thinking, "Oh, you're doing nitpicking stuff like that." Because I can remember, like, literally, like, being on like an IMDb. I remember IMDb being on like an IMDb message board where people were like complaining, saying she wasn't pretty enough to play Cho. I'm like, come on, man. Sure she is. That's like how harsh and mean people can be.
They said that, yeah. I guess I believe it. I thought she's.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to have one. It's not a big deal, right? One random person. My point is, a lot of people are like chiming in and agreeing. That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, because one random person can have any sort of opinion, right? But a lot of people are like, I know. They're like, they go out of their way to say she's like the prettiest girl in school, blah blah blah. I'm like, come on, pretty. What are you talking about? Like, I think you're over focusing.
Yeah, totally.
And again, I don't spend much time defending Rowling, and I know there's, you can look on YouTube, there's lots of ways to fix the books, which I agree with, which has nothing to do with even Rowling's questionable views on certain things. But, for years I knew ways to fix the books. I could easily make a video about 10 years too late. But people like criticize the fact that like the Chinese character was named Cho Chang. I don't think that's a big deal. Chang is a pretty common name, and Cho is a nice name, so I don't think that's necessarily like some sort of like racism. I mean, we don't get much into Cho. Like, yeah, we know that she's of Chinese descent, and in the movie she's Irish, which is kind of interesting. The movies add a bit more diversity than the books because they make certain characters Irish that aren't necessarily mentioned to be so. Like, we know pretty much that Seamus is, but in the books, It seems pretty clear that both Cho and Oliver Wood are also Irish. Babbling like a bumbling bed. Okay, so here's another thing. I do enjoy the whole dance thing, but this is one of the reasons why so much I think was cut out from the other stuff. It was important to them to make the dance stuff intact. They wanted it big. This is where they weren't going to cut, right? So I feel like a lot of things were cut at the expense of this whole collection of scenes related to the ball. I get it. It's amusing. And it is a good it captures adolescence pretty well. It's showing our characters growing up a bit. Now, they're having things about dating and girl-boy stuff and dances and all that. And it is pretty well done, the whole thing between the Ron and Hermione. They're sort of, as much as I say that, I've never agreed with that shipping, but if that's how it actually is, that's canon, fine. It is okay, the way Ron and Hermione act. Like, he thinks of her as a last resort. Never occurs to him that somebody else would ask her. Is astonished when somebody as famous as Crumb asks her. And I get it. It's the type of thing. It's like, we always knew Hermione was, as she was growing up, she was getting more pretty. But most of them, they were too close. They were blind to it. They had to see her all dressed up for the dance. Like, I get all that. That's all fine. I just feel like this is almost more the centerpiece of the movie than anything else. It's so important to them to have big, long, detailed scenes about this that I feel like that's where other scenes, got cut. Or, subplots got cut. I feel like you could definitely do a more simplified, shortened version of the ball stuff and add some other stuff in, but whatever. Those Ravenclaws are not into you, Harry.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, a scene we wouldn't see in the books, but I don't mind. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. Because it is still a plot point that Hagrid has a thing for her. And I think this dialogue of putting his dad up on the dresser is from somewhere. I just don't remember where. Like, I don't think that's created for the movie. We're humming along here, people. Yeah. Luckily, I think that was my issue. I had too much shit open this week. I haven't had any connection issues, which is nice. An hour, 20 minutes into this. So we're coming up to about 1:10, maybe 30-second mark for the time in the movie. And there's the girls going after. See, this is true too. Like, the girls did follow Crumb around because even though he was not good looking in the books, he was still, a famous athlete. This is just random, but again, I don't mind it because they're just trying to play up some humor, which is fine. Because I feel like that's one of the things that gets lost as the movies go on. As the plots get bigger and more intense and, more serious, the books always, and except for the last because it's not at school, but the books still always made a point to have like the lighthearted classroom stuff. Whereas the movies had to start to kind of sacrifice that because the plots were getting so big. So little moments like this I do like. By the way, this isn't important. I'm not saying it's important, but see, there's Angelina Johnson. Angelina Johnson was actually the Gryffindor that did put her name in the cup because she was old enough. Hermione, you're a girl.
You're good.
Yeah, I know I probably said this going back to like the very first one. I've never agreed with the shipping in the books or, and that's fine, Author is God, take it where it is. I just never really liked the whole Hermione Ron thing. I get why it's there. To me, I know you could say, oh, it's too obvious to have Harry and Hermione, but to me, that just worked much better. And Harry and Ginny is garbage.
I didn't like the Harry and Ginny, but the Ron and
nobody
Hermione
likes Harry and Ginny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not terribly done. I'm not saying Ron and Hermione is terribly done. I just always thought it just made the most sense for it to be Harry and Hermione. I get why the author wouldn't want to do that. It seems too obvious to have like his closest girlfriend be the one he falls in love with. Better to have like and one thing I actually really like in fiction and I get annoyed about. So you could call me a hypocrite. It's like I really do enjoy like male-female friendships in like movies and TV and stuff that aren't romantic because those can happen. And yet so many times in shows and stuff, they want to turn it into a romantic thing. And I feel like you don't always have to do that. Same thing with, and I never had a problem with the Cho thing either, because it makes sense that, it's his first relationship, probably not going to work out. Whose first relationship goes up, and the awkwardness that breaks them apart, again, it makes sense. It shows their immaturity. Because honestly, if they communicate better, they could at least have the better relationship. Yeah, they're probably not destined to be together. They're probably not going to be together forever. But you understand how they break up. It's kind of stupid. It's mostly just misunderstandings and a lack of communication. But, people, even adults, do that. So it's completely believable for, like, teenagers to do it. She's upset about losing Cedric and, all the complicated feelings she has about that. And Harry, doesn't know how to deal with it and blah, blah, and they basically just let it go. And that's frustrating, but it is realistic. It's like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah, I'm glad that for that reason, it probably didn't turn out that she was the one. If nothing, but
I got no problem with that.
She was, like you said, his first kind of dating.
Yeah. So I have no problem with it from that perspective, but from the perspective that he then pivots to the little sister of his best friend, infuriates.
Yeah, that bothers me. I never thought that worked or made sense.
It's even more out of nowhere in the movies, right? It's out of, if you only watch the movies and don't take the books into account, in the 6th movie, you must have just been stunned when they were suddenly, showing that they had feelings for each other. You're like, where the fuck did this come from? We knew way back in the early movies, it was a joke that, she's got a crush on Harry. But by the time we get to the 5th movie, we know she's dating other people. Yeah. By the 5th movie, it's a stat. See, there they are together. They wouldn't be. Only one of them's there. Padma is a Ravenclaw. She would not be in the Gryffindor common room. No big deal, but might as well. Plus, they're also really good looking too, which does not get pointed out in the movie, but is pointed out in the book. Where one of Seamus or one of the other boys is like, I don't know how you guys got the best looking girls in the house. Because that's what a lot of people thought that, or in the year. Because that's another thing too. Cho, as far as I can tell, in the movies seems to be Harry's age, but in the book she's not. She's a year ahead of Harry. The dress rooms. I mean, you feel it even worse when you realize it was his own mother that bought them for Harry. It's like, why couldn't? And it is explained. She's like, well, we didn't have the money, so we had to get secondhand ones for you.
See, I always just assumed Harry used his money because he was left a small fortune.
Well, that's what it is. It is Harry's money. The thing is, they were so busy doing the World Cup stuff that Ron's mom went to Diagon Alley to pick up their school things, and she got the list saying they needed dress robes this year. So she picked up dress robes for both of them. So she got Harry nice ones because she was using Harry's money, and she bought secondhand ones for Ron because it's over and over told us that this family of 9 is poor. Maybe if they believed in wizard birth control, then we wouldn't have to deal with Ginny at all. I'm just being overly harsh for. I don't really. Ginny's fine, whatever. Ginny's fine. I just don't. Like
Ginny, Ginny's fine. The character's fine. The actress is fine. It's just I don't believe the Harry Ginny dynamic.
Yeah, it's bad in the books and it's worse in the films. So I think it's Padma that gets. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with either, these Asian girls being in their traditional dresses either. I mean, they do that. I've engaged a few Asians, I can say for sure. Sometimes they like to dress up in traditional things. Why not? It's their heritage. Those are some big earrings, though. She really is a funny girl, that Belle. She eventually played it off. Yeah, and I don't like Crumb's. Crumb should not be like this at all. Crumb doesn't like this shit. And Crumb does not do smart military salutes and walk like he's some sort of prince or diplomat. She goes with Crumb and she enjoys herself with Crumb, but Crumb is not like this.
Well, I think in that case they had to make him kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say dashing, but
Well, yeah, I mean dashing, sure.
Less droopy.
It's funny because that's the word. That's the word poor Padma tried to use for Ron. She's trying to be nice. She's like, "Don't you look dashing?" or something like that. And they play this up too. Padma's really or not Padma. Pravarti really enjoys the extra attention. Like that's why she's happy to go with Harry because she knows like. Not saying that Pravarti's bad or anything. I'm just saying it's just pointed out like she is totally into it because she likes the attention, which is fine. Maybe that's part of being a twin, right? You feel like people are always thinking of you as a set instead of individuals. I figure that must be what it's like to be a twin. You know, you want to be an individual. You don't want to just be defined by the fact that, oh, there's another person that looks exactly like me and they're right next to me. I guess that's the other thing about being a twin, right? Like if there's somebody out in the world who looks exactly like me, they're not related to me and they're nowhere near me, so that's cool. But if you have a twin, they're always right next to you. And this is true too. Neville does go with. Neville's the one who enjoys it more than anyone. Neville has the best night of anybody.
It kind of shows there, even in that one little clip of them, shot of them.
If Hermione's too obvious for Harry, I always thought the better option then was Luna.
Was who?
Luna Lovegood, who has not appeared yet, but shows up in the fifth.
Yeah.
Right, so there's several members of Radiohead and Pulp. I believe that's Pulp's lead singer Jarvis Cocker doing the singing. Everybody knows Radiohead, but of like those Britpop bands that did very well but not over here, I would totally recommend Pulp. They never blew up in North America, but they're fucking awesome. So anybody want to look up some cool Britpop stuff from the 90s, Pulp was one of the best bands around. There was like a big four, and really two of the big four were big over here. Those being Radiohead, not even counting their other the big two being Blur and Oasis. They were the ones that did well over here. Then the other two would have been Suede and Pulp. That was the big four of Britpop in the 90s. But I'm a big Pulp fan. They're really good, cool song. They have a really big hit called "Common People." It's a very fun, amusing song. But this is all really well done. I like, the band, the set dressing. It looks really great. It looks a lot like the way I would have pictured it. Although, again, I feel like there's too much of this. I mean, I don't mind a 3-hour movie, but most people don't want a 3-hour movie. So if you don't want a 3-hour movie, I feel like cut some of this down and give back to some of the other stuff you've let dry. But we'll leave it. And this is true, too. Ron does suddenly act like this, which is fine. I get it. He's turning around to Hermione. He's like, he's just using you to get to Harry. Oof. He's got a bit more than friendship on his mind. I mean, the books are more explicit. There's mentions of like people sneaking off to like make out in the bushes and stuff in the books and like getting caught by teachers. It's all very.
Which I guess does happen at that age, but I think just quick mentionings is enough for the movies. We don't need to.
It's one of those things where, like, it didn't happen for me at that age. Like saying I'm Harry's age. Because, some of these kids are 16, 17. Didn't happen to me at Harry's age. But I feel like it would have if I was at Hogwarts. I would have known what to do at Hogwarts. I could have blossomed. I swear, I could have blossomed earlier. I could have had girls earlier if I went to Hogwarts. I swear. I don't know. My early teens was kind of, it's not as bad as a lot of people who, like, struck out or, didn't have dates. In that there were girls that did like me. And I was either oblivious to them, or I was just like fixated on girls that like did not, even acknowledge my existence. That's basically what my early.
I think that happens to a lot.
I didn't date anybody 13, 14, but honestly, I could have if I'd actually like been more attentive. But again, I was fixated on people that weren't interested in me. So I don't look back on it too bad. It's not like I was necessarily a dateless loser exactly. I don't know. Different generations seem to view that differently too. Like back in the 90s, like when I was that age, you'd watch movies like, speaking of witches and wizards, do you remember the movie Hocus Pocus?
Oh yeah.
There's a big plot point in Hocus Pocus about making fun of this kid for being a virgin, but he's like 13. But that's like, it's like a joke. Like they're like a ribbing him for it. It's like, I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal to be like a virgin at that age. And yet you heard that a lot, like in the 90s. I think it like nowadays it's a little, I don't know. I always see articles too talking about like how Gen Z doesn't have much sex. I don't know how they know that. How the fuck do you know that? How do you know how much sex people are having? If anything, people would just lie.
Yeah, even if they took a survey or something.
And yeah, I've never read actual articles, but I remember over the last 5-6 years seeing multiple like article headlines saying like Gen Z like fucks less or something. I'm like, I don't believe that for a second. And this is weird that we're getting this. I don't think this happens in the book at all because he's flashing back to the thing from the beginning. Again, Crouch Jr. shouldn't be there, but whatever. For the purposes of this very simplified movie, he's there. But yeah, it's too bad. There's no. Yes. Neville had the best time. I just got in. Me. I will say, in the books and movies, Neville's arc is very satisfying. Right? You get to see him start off as a very shy, nervous klutz guy who becomes a total badass by the end. Maybe it's a bit predictable, but it's still satisfying.
I don't think
they get a lot of mileage out of this. Well, what's funny though is like I find it somewhat predictable, but it's okay in that I've always said like I've never understood Malfoy's subverting expectations because you expect him to redeem himself, and he does in the tiniest, like most passive way. And I get it. In a way, it is more realistic. Like, would a person who's so lousy and had such a bad upbringing suddenly become heroic and good? Maybe not. But I always did feel like it was a missed opportunity that, like, Malfoy's big moment of being good was, like, just not committing fully to evil. He never actually did anything brave or heroic or even nice. He just stopped short of being totally evil, and that was his arc. Which, in a way, again, I can applaud for maybe being more realistic and less predictable, but it is less satisfying. Like, the whole time, again, for me, this is a period of years reading these books. To finally get to one and find out, like, when Malfoy finally has a chance to step up, he really doesn't. Well, it's pretty disappointing. And it's not like I like Malfoy or was rooting for Malfoy. It's just, I don't know. I thought there was a chance there, a narrative chance to do something. I love this scene. It's so much better here than in the book because of the way Pattinson does it. Watch how Pattinson does this. It's hilarious. Doesn't it sound like he's propositioning Harry for a sexual liaison? It's so funny. Like, that's what Harry should be thinking. This guy wants to, like, meet him secretly in the bathroom after hours for a bath? What kind of signals have I been sending out to Cedric? Like, I know Pattinson knew something. Like, just the way he was like, it's not a bad place for a ball. So I'm surprised they didn't cut her, since they cut so many. But they actually do bring our dear Myrtle back.
Oh, I'm so glad.
They cut so many characters. I'm glad that she didn't get cut. Like, she's actually here.
And this scene is a little wild for.
This is another reason why I love Hogwarts. Look how awesome this bath is. I would totally be a prefect. I would do everything in my power to be a prefect just so I could have access to this magnificent bathroom. Are you kidding me? Look at this. Plus, I would just do what Harry does anyway. I wouldn't even have to be a prefect. I would just sneak in after hours and do this, not for any purpose, but just to have a nice bath. Myrtle. Long time no see, she says from the toilet. I'm sure Jess will be back momentarily. Yeah, she does mention about the polyjuice potion here, which is a hint of Crouch Jr. impersonating Moody. There's not many in the movies. There's more in the books, but at least there is something there about the polyjuice potion. Who's the handsome one? Not you, Harry. What are those scratches from? Is that from an owl? Where? Bath continues. It takes Harry, like, at least she tells him, like, they're right underwater. Like, Harry does sit there for, like, ages thinking, like, he just got pranked by Cedric. I don't know. It's water. Try opening it underwater. I think I would have figured it. I'm not a puzzle guy at all, but I think I would have connected that a lot faster than Harry. Take it in the bath. Well, opening it doesn't work. Opening it in the water. I'm in water. You know, it makes Harry look kind of dim, but okay, that's it.
Like Myrtle.
Yeah. I'd rather Cedric than her. If I had to have a bathing companion, I'll tell you right now, I'll take it Cedric over Myrtle. I think Cedric would show more consideration.
She freaked me out in the second one when I first watched it. I thought she was creepy. Still is, I guess.
She's still pretty creepy. I like how she points out, like, it's weird, like, how her physics work too, because she's a ghost, she's untethered, but for some reason she can get, like, sucked down the pipes and shot into the lake. What kind of hell is this? I see why people don't want to become ghosts, but if you're going to become a ghost, maybe don't live in a bathroom. This is interesting too. This is one of those things, like, when you have a fictional story that involves magic, it's weird to suddenly come up against something that seems mundane and find out it's a real problem. Like, it's a world of magic. We've seen so much magic in these first 4 books and movies, and Harry is stumped by figuring out a way to breathe underwater. You would think it would be like a normal, ordinary thing that he would have found out by now. Like, it's just one of those things that, like, it's just how the plot goes, right? Like, there's spells to do this, there's spells to do that, and this. He can't find shit about breathing underwater. It's like it's a big secret. Like, eventually there are ways to do it. We see all 4 of them do different ways. But the idea that it poses such a challenge is kind of funny, considering we've been introduced to this world of magic where so much is possible. And suddenly it's like, there's something secretive about water breathing magic. It's not something you just can find out. Like, you have to really dig for it. It seems kind of weird. Yeah, so this whole thing doesn't happen. What happens is, Harry literally wakes up the morning of, in bed, still has no fucking idea what to do, and Dobby's in his room and gives him the gillyweed. The idea being, he was supposed to have this conversation with Neville, but because he was annoyed by Neville, because he was in a bad mood about everybody hating him, he always put Neville off. Four do down, but do 4 come up?
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's funny too. There's another hilarious line in the aftermath of this that's not in the book at all. That, again, I don't know. It's so bizarre. Like, it's the same idea of, like, I don't get why the direction for Dumbledore when Harry's name came out of the goblet was to freak out and grab Harry and be all wild-eyed. Like, I don't get that. There's an even weirder one for Hermione in the aftermath of this. I don't want to spoil it. We'll get to it. But it's when it's over. It's actually at the time coming out of the water when I mentioned that whole thing about how Crumb actually notices the beetle in her hair, which is secretly Rita Skeeter. I love these cool structures.
Yes.
Again, everyone's out for a great, spectator thing, but then they go underwater and you can't see shit.
I don't know how else you do it, though.
I know. I mean,
it's quite an
I'm not
event.
saying it's necessarily a flaw. I'm not saying it's a flaw necessarily. I'm just saying it is a little disappointing for the audience. Something. Like, it is a good task. Like, I think it's a good task. It's good variety. The 3 different tasks, they all stand out. I would have trouble with this anyway, too, because I'm just, like, afraid of underwater situations anyway.
And doesn't it feel like they somehow have some monitoring going on and they're making announcements?
Yeah, the idea is the Mer people report back to Dumbledore. That's how they know exactly the details of, like, how Harry, heroically tried to save other people. So the Mer people are, like, reporting on what's going on directly to Dumbledore. Killed Harry Potter. It's like, I didn't kill him? Okay, so one of the things is we're going to see, like, little monsters here, right, to try to grab him. They're introduced in the 3rd book. There's something that Lupin sets them against. There are these little aquatic creatures called Grindylows.
Hmm.
But I don't think they're named in this movie. So the Hermione thing, she's going to mention them. And it's a very easy line to miss. It's one of those lines where I think 90% of the audience hears it and doesn't know what's being said and just has to go past it and move on. But it's not just that she's bringing up some information that most people aren't privy to. It's the context. It's so funny. So, like, it's explained, like, part of Harry's transformation is, like, not only can he breathe underwater, but, like, he doesn't feel cold or anything anymore. I have to assume, like, the same sorts of effects happen to these guys. Because it's not just enough not to be able to breathe. It's explained that the lake is very cold, so you need to protect yourself in cold water. Cedric did the bubblehead charm. And Crumb tried to turn into a shark, but kind of botched it. But luckily he got the front end, and that's what mattered, because that's how he breathes, I guess. It's interesting, too, when you think about, like, who was taken from who. Ron was taken from Harry because they have a long-standing friendship and are known as best friends, which is just suggests how badly their dates went. Because, like, everybody else, like, were dates. Like, Cho went with Cedric, so obviously Cho's her thing. You know, Hermione went with Crumb, so that's his thing.
Mm-hmm.
The only one that's really different is Fleur. Like, it's like Fleur went with some, like, nameless. Actually, he's not named. He has name. But some guy from Ravenclaw. But it's just like, well, we know that your date was a total disaster, Harry. So obviously Ron's the most important person. Yeah, I don't like how it's supposed to be the bubblehead charm. I guess that does work. I pictured more of a full bubble. I guess it doesn't matter too much. It's still not a bad effect. The Harry Potter movies have very good effects. That's maybe something I haven't talked enough about. You know, the Harry Potter movies have good effects. I mean, that was one of the lucky things about their publishing history, too. They came around at a time when the technology was really coming in to be able to do this kind of thing. You know, if these books were written like in the 70s or 80s, they would have been very difficult to make.
Yeah, they would have really had to modify and cut a lot of shit if they made them in the 80s or early 90s.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the main reason George Lucas waited to do the prequels. Is that, you know, he wanted the effects technology to, you know, get to a better level for the things he wanted to show. Same thing with, like, Avatar. Like, Avatar was first conceived in, like, 1995 or something. And it took, like, decades for it to get to the point where it would reach, you know, what James Cameron wanted. Cedric is the winner. Not quite. It's not necessarily first, this best. So there was a scene where we saw, like, Fleur had gotten attacked, right? And then it cut away quickly.
Yeah.
So we know here that Fleur, those two succeeded. Fleur botched it, and that's why he went back to the sister, thinking that the sister's in real danger. So those are Grindylows. Although I don't think they should actually have, like, all those tentacles. I think they're described as more humanoid. I think they have actually legs, but for the purposes of the movies, these Grindylows have, like, octopus bodies. Whatever. The point is, those are Grindylows. They attacked Fleur and took her out of the running. Now they're attacking Harry, but he will fight them off. They say, like, no one's in any danger here, but I don't know. I get that the Mer people are only, you know, the Mer people are intelligent. They're only instructed to act tough. They're not actually a threat. But the Grindylows are like wild animals. So aren't they a real threat? Like, they're not in on it. They're not part of the joke or the gag here. Anyway. She says, there, it's finished. Take my hand. No French for you.
Well, there's got to be an element of danger if they seriously mean that this tournament can be deadly.
True. But the point is, for only them, right? The fact that Fleur was taken out should not mean her sister dies.
I don't think she would have, but he still gets the moral fiber credit, even though they would have saved her. I always had that even in my head, even since the beginning. That
I know all that. I'm just saying there is real danger that they're part of, but like these people did not, they weren't chosen. So, but they're part of. You know what I mean? It's a little more.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Look how nice she is to Ron. Like, she thought Ron sucked. Now she's like, you helped. How could she think that Ron helped? She knew he was a helpless victim. She was down there, but whatever. Don't worry, Ron. Now you get to see your cool older brother take her. There's some more annoying shipping. It's not the worst, though. There! Isn't that, like, so crazy and out of character for Hermione? It sounds like she's mocking Fleur. She mocks her accent. She says, Zigrindios. Like, I remember, I probably rushed right past it the first time I saw the movie, but when I first watched it on Blu-ray or whatever, I backed it up several times. I was like, what the fuck? She's, like, mocking Fleur's accent? What's funny is, in the book, she actively does not like Fleur, but there's no hint of it in the movie. So, even though that line is not in the book, it would make more sense in the book. In the book, she's annoyed by Fleur. She thinks Fleur is stuck up, and she's kind of right. But to me, that's even funnier than Cedric. That Hermione just decides in that moment to mock Fleur. Not just mock her, but make fun of her accent, which seems so against character. Like, I mean, just saying Zigrindilos, like, I get it. Like, it's not like, oh, that's racist. Like, no, of course, it's pretty harmless. But for Hermione, it just seems crazy. It's like Hermione, like, yelling a racial slur. It, like, is how it sounds to me. That Hermione, of all people, would say this. I know this scene happens somewhere. I don't remember where. But he does tell Harry a little about his personal life, although we don't know. See, once we're going to get to the Ponciev stuff that has the flashbacks, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to take multiple things that take place over years, and they're going to combine them all into one thing, which is, again, that's another major problem I have with this movie. They absolutely should cut other stuff to make sure the Ponciev stuff is clear, because it's so important. The movie botches it completely. The movie takes about 3 different scenes that are years apart and crams them all into one event, and it's very bad. Yeah, so they have that little moment there where you might possibly recognize the son. I do like how they make up some song for Hagrid and Hermione to sing about the school. I don't know what's going on here. They're just wandering the woods for some reason. This is like going back to the first 2 movies. This is like what Chris Columbus did all the time. Instead of taking scenes where the characters are doing something as part of the plot, he'll just randomly have them walking somewhere talking for no reason. Again, this doesn't happen like this at all. Harry is with Crumb. He's not with them. Harry is speaking to Crumb. I don't know why this has changed. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't make things smoother. Instead of being with Crumb, instead of specifically saying, hey, Crumb, I want to speak to you privately, away from people, towards the woods, the movie's like, how about Hagrid, Hermione, and Harry are walking in the woods for no reason at all, and he finds Crouch. I hate stuff like that. And it's the same thing they did in the first and second movie. The second movie, that whole thing where Harry, they find the blood thing on the wall. They make it seem like Harry, Hermione, and Ron are just walking around, breaking curfew for no reason. So stuff like that bothers me. Because there's actual reasons for things, and then the movies are like, let's just remove it. Have them out for no reason at all. And yeah, that bothers me. This doesn't ruin the movie, but if I'm going to quote on the things I think are most important that they wreck, the most important stuff they wreck is taking out Winky, thus, and making the Barty Crouch stuff not a mystery at all, and tied into that, the Ponciev stuff we're about to see. Those should need to be separate scenes. They need to be understood to be taking place years apart. They can't all be combined into one event. And this idea that Crouch was secretly undercover is bizarre. I get that it's a fun reveal in the movie because he's like, Krakow is like, Barty Crouch! And the guy's like, what are you talking about? And then he goes, Junior. And it's like, oh, it's the son. Like, I get how that's kind of cool, but it's kind of also nonsensical. People who don't know what I'm raving about, Crouch's son was openly a Death Eater. He wasn't secretly a Death Eater. He became a Death Eater when he was quite young, and when he got arrested, he was really freaking out about it, and he was denying, saying it was all a mistake. It was one of the reasons why Crouch seemed so cruel, because not only did he arrest his own son and lock him away, but his son denied. We all know, and that's part of the thing too. When you watch these memories in the book, you know we have no idea who Crouch Jr. is. We don't know anything about Moody, anything like that, right? So we might believe Crouch Jr. reading the book. We might think that it is all a mix-up. It's all a mistake, that he got dragged into something with the Death Eaters, that he wasn't actively one of them. But in this, it's all thrown out the window. In this, he's a secret Death Eater when he's caught. He's like, I don't know, he's like Hannibal Lecter or something. Because not only do they catch him and he goes, hello, father, he goes like, arr! Like he's going to bite somebody or something. It's quite silly. So yeah, this is supposed to be several different scenes, several years apart, but they're going to combine it all into one, which really messes up the story. Besides, I know I invented the Marauders map. I invented something like this too. Again, I'm not saying I bet you lots of people did. The idea of going into something that can, get you inside memories, not just remember them, but like physically experience them. That's not me trying to say I'm great or to shit on Rowling. Just pointing out that I'm sure a lot of people thought of this concept, just like people probably thought of the concept of the Marauders map, a map that shows you where people are and how they move around. I'm sure other people thought of that before me, before Rowling, etc. You mentioned Rookwood. There's some really great line delivery in this movie. There's a part where Crouch is going to start yelling silence. And I don't know, again, what the direction was, why they wanted to go that way. Oh, there's Skeeter. I mean, they get this in. It is important because it's the first time in the books or the movies you find out Snape was a former Death Eater. That is a big reveal. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I get it. He's not the type of guy that would scream, but it is a weird delivery. He goes, like his voice kind of wavers. I'm overthinking it. It's one line. I know. But it always sounded off to me the way he said silent. See, here it's mentioned, or this is where Neville's parents are mentioned, but I don't know. Oh, okay, so that's how Harry knew. I said, yeah, this is how Harry found out. But this is, again, not how it's done. Crouch was already caught. He wasn't revealed. Crouch was caught. Everybody knew it. And he was younger than this. And he didn't have this reaction at all. And he cried and screamed and pleaded with his father and said, he was innocent. But they take all, there's just, yeah. So the "you are no son of mine" here does not seem that cruel. Because he's just acting like a lunatic. But in the book, when you read it, you think, wow, Crouch really is a cold motherfucker. Because you don't know. But yeah, so that's how Harry knew. That's how Harry knew about Neville's parents before Ron and Hermione would find out in the 5th book, which is cut from the 5th movie. Oh my god, the 5th movie is going to be a disaster. I can't wait to do it.
Uh-huh.
It's the worst movie in the series.
It's definitely on the lower end, mid to lower.
It's bottom for me. It's the longest book. It's the shortest movie. And, that's another casting choice where I'm not too against it. For instance, because for once it might, because as I said, Rowling can be pretty cruel to certain characters, especially if you're supposed to be villains. Rowling will often make them, again, be ugly or something in some way. That's definitely what Umbridge is in the book. In the book, Umbridge is a large, fat toad-like woman. And I feel like it probably was good to not cast that way. Like, we don't need to be like hit us over the head with this kind of stuff. But Rowling has that sort of old-fashioned mean-spiritedness about her that I relate again back to something like a Roald Dahl, where just like she can't help but like have a dig at their appearance, and she feels like it's a bad guy, so it's okay to do this. And I'm not trying to like go overly woke on the books, blah blah blah. We all know reviews on things and stuff like that. I'm just saying she is unnecessarily nasty about a lot of stuff, especially poor Dudley. She fat shames Dudley at every turn. Dudley can't walk 2 feet without her talking about how he's jiggling or bulging or some bullshit. It's really quite messed up. But I couldn't read it. Just today, I reread because I'd forgotten the line about Rita Skeeter having large mannish hands. I was like, well, that's pretty on brand, I guess, Rowling. I know this happens. I don't remember exactly the context. I don't think it's exactly like this, but Harry does stumble something upon like this about him starting to show the mark. That does happen. I just don't remember if it's exactly like this or not. Because part of this is the whole thing is that Harry has the map and starts to see Crouch Jr., thinking it's Crouch, but Crouch isn't. Yeah, because we know at this point that Crouch is dead, right? They found Crouch's body. So we know Crouch is dead. So yeah, this is where like the book gets really mysterious and interesting, but in the movie they just sort of jump over it. We get it, Snape. You're a shit teacher. He's like, I'm such an unprofessional teacher, and I hate you so much that I will use an illegal drug on you. I know I said this before too. Like, I don't know if you need to be this far with Snape being such a dick, but they just go for it. Like, he's just insufferable.
I love it.
I always thought it would have been fine for him to just, be mean to Harry and be kind of a dick, but like they just take it so far. And like I said, like it even goes beyond Harry. Like what he said to Hermione in the book about how he saw no difference. He's saying like she's got big teeth. Yeah, so there's a lot of context missing here because there's nothing about Hagrid and the care for magical creatures. But there's like blast-ended Sroots. Remember those monstrosities running around the maze or stuff like that? Oh, Bobaton students are so happy they're doing Macarena. Here's a blast-ended Screw. They look as horrible as they're described. Fire coming out of them.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
These are those horrible monstrosities that Hagrid forces everybody to watch in the class. And by the end, like there's like 5 or 6 of them go like 6 feet long, and they get set loose in this maze. One of the only pictures I don't like in this, I think there's a picture of Cho in this that I don't particularly like. I think this is supposed to be Ginny, but she looks too old. I'm not sure if that's Ginny or not. Might be Ginny. Ginny's only a 3rd year, though. She looks a bit too old for 3rd year. There's the ship from Durmstrang, and it's shipped against the backdrop of Hogwarts Castle. So anything how front-loaded this book is. We're only at the 2nd task here. We're more than 2/3 through. Yeah, this book's very front-loaded. Makes sense, though. There's a lot of setup. I don't know if these are Grimmulos or Mer people, but they're very scary. It's down in the lake.
Huh. I'm wondering if there's those.
Harry with Fleur's sister and Ron. It's not a good angle.
Oh, yeah.
Rising up through the depths. It's amazing to think how underused Cedric is in the movie, really. Like, he actually has a lot more dialogue in the books. And this he doesn't get to talk much at all. Here's Winky, by the way. Because she's a big part of the ending, too. Because she has all sorts of information on Barty Crouch Jr. Because that's the whole thing. The whole thing where they they confront him and have him think is that one of the instructions Dumbledore gives is he tells somebody, McGonagall or somebody, to go to the kitchens and find Winky and bring him. Because obviously Dumbledore knows about her past employment. The concierge is very far out. There's a giant spider in the maze. I forgot about that. Flesh, blood, and bone. Wait a second. Flesh, blood, and bone? Yes, too. Like, yeah, the graveyard thing is more than one chapter. Flesh, blood, and bone. The Death Eaters. The Death Eaters are much scarier here. Look how good they look.
Oh yes,
those are great masks. They're much scarier. They probably wanted something a little. They probably just decided they couldn't go too scary for the movie, so some of the kids would watch it. And I don't know. I'm not trying to pretend I'm so smart or something, but I can remember back in the summer of 2000 seeing this and having a good enough understanding of Latin to understand what they were trying to say. Like priori incantatem. I get it. A spell from before. Like even younger, I had a pretty good grasp of certain Latin words. That's what most of the spells are based on, right? Latin. So they're not hard to figure out. I wasn't taught it. Never taught Latin in school. It's just something you pick up. It's amazing the number of things you pick up. We'll have a discussion about it some other time, but like American history. I wasn't taught American history in school, but I know it all anyway. And I don't mean now as a 40-something. I mean, by the time I was like in junior high, I knew the exact amount of American history than like any American kid knew. I just did. It was everywhere. Like I couldn't watch The Simpsons or something without some kid having a test about, Benjamin Franklin or George Washington or Paul Revere. I was never taught any of that in school, but I knew it all just the same because it just showed up all over pop culture.
Pop culture, I was going to say, probably had a big play in that.
We weren't taught history the way Americans were. Like, in elementary, I wasn't taught any history. And in junior high, all the history I learned was Nova Scotia history, the province I'm from. It wasn't until I got to high school where history was like a choice you could pick. And that wasn't even about Canadian history anymore. Now I was learning world history. So it seems to be, and I mean, I can't say for sure, it seems to me that Americans learn history differently. They seem to have a bigger focus on, I don't know. Because like I said, I couldn't watch a sitcom or a show or something without like some kid having a test and all this stuff coming up. To the point that I memorized it. Anyway, it's got nothing to do with this. But yeah, I never once at school or anything ever had a test that would ask me who Benjamin Franklin was or anything about electricity or Paul Revere or Abraham Lincoln, but I knew who they all were. I'm not saying perfectly. I'm not saying I could give you like a biography of them.
I mean, some of them I wouldn't expect you necessarily to, because we didn't go deep into the histories of other countries.
Well, again, this is more like a
certain subject, certain subject.
What I mean is, growing up as a Canadian, I did not get the same sort of education about Canadian history as Americans seem to get.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Interesting. But I feel like even in elementary, we had a bit in like social studies that we added some even world history things. And in junior high,
I can remember. I can remember learning vaguely in like grade 4 some World War II stuff. Like I understood World War II had happened when it happened, and the countries involved, and at least some of the causes. I knew that because like because I'm grade 4. Speaking of things kids don't do anymore, this is not an American Canadian thing. This is a generational thing. Is kids don't memorize shit anymore. But you and I are old enough that we both had to memorize things. I assume, right? You had to memorize things.
Oh,
One
yeah.
of the first things I had to memorize was I was in grade 4. And in grade 4, I had to memorize the poem In Flanders Fields, which is about World War I. So we did have to learn the literary, the historical context around that. So that's a little bit. But kids don't memorize stuff at all now. And I don't just mean now. I mean, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, they didn't either.
Yeah.
Like,
it's definitely made a drastic change.
I don't know. So I feel like memorization's a skill you need to get somewhere. Like, there's no way I could have done French immersion if I didn't know how to memorize stuff. You know, when you get thrown into a different language, if you can't memorize stuff, then you're just going to sink. And I get it. Nobody does that. Nobody has to do that. But I'm just saying, when you get older, you might take more challenging things where it would be really good if you could know how to memorize something. Like, no, I'm not saying memorize like an entire chapter of a book. But,
but memorization does play an important role in education.
Yeah. And it seems like kids, and again, I'm not making a distinction between American and Canadian. I just mean generational. It seems like they don't learn that kind of stuff anymore. Like how to recite something.
Well, I was a theater kid, so it's hard for me to balance. Like, was that normal or was that just?
You were always doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the earliest I can think of was I was in grade 4, so I'd have been about 9. Was doing In Flanders Fields. Which, never left me. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, the marketplace in the sky, the lark still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. And I could go on. But, So here we've reached the darkest scene of the movie so far. And it is
I think
no
period
here.
This whole scene is amazing.
And I have no complaints here. People have heard me bitch and complain for 2 hours about this and that. This is very well done. Obviously some of the dialogue, they cut some of the dialogue. It's, it's not quite as wordy, but still, all the important stuff is in here. It's all done very well. Yeah. I think one of the things that people keep forgetting is that, it's Wormtail that killed Cedric. Everybody acts like Voldemort killed him. He says to kill him. He gives the order. Wormtail kills him. Kill despair. It also shows, like, how anticlimactic it is. Like Cedric and Harry reflects on this many times afterwards. Like that, Cedric was an exceptional wizard for his age. It was no fluke he was in the tournament. But when it came to facing down somebody that was just going to kill you, there was nothing you could do.
Going back a minute ago on history and stuff, I was going to mention that in middle school, we did do reports on provinces in Canada.
Yeah, we only have a few, right? You guys have 50. That's a lot. That's a lot to memorize.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying this. Like, I, again, was a bright kid. I knew all the states pretty quickly. But I'm not saying that's difficult. That was just a little overachiever like myself. But 10 provinces, 2 territories, and then eventually a third. Not
well, and it's not like we went deep into Canadian history, but.
Well, it's funny. Like I said, we didn't really either. Except, when I was in junior high, I learned sort of deep Nova Scotian history as it pertained to Nova Scotia, which I found quite boring at the time, but it's okay. But yeah, as far as like Western Canada, I didn't really learn anything. And so you learn different things, like.
And to me, I find it not being there kind of interesting. What I've read even in the last few years, and knew a little bit about Prince Edward Island because of like Avonlea and
Anna Green Gables,
yeah, Anna Green Gables and stuff like that.
PEI is very nice. You would definitely enjoy it. It's a very pretty place. But yes, I'm very close to there. It's a couple hours away. I'm from the other island. I'm from Cape Breton Island. They used to have a what's it called? He's reborn. No nose. They didn't get the nose, but he's reborn. It's mentioned though he didn't really have nose, and I get that's why. That's purposely to evoke a snake-like appearance, right?
Yes, that's what I always.
So again, I don't think he's the wrong actor, but I never understood the direction. Again, this is the same thing I said about the new Gandalf. I say new Gandalf. What am I saying? Dumbledore is Gambon as Dumbledore, and him Ray Fiennes as they both give very physical performances that maybe they thought looked better on screen, but I don't agree with. especially him. Like, he's not physical at all, but the actor is very physical.
See, like, I'd be the opposite.
I getting in people's face.
I love that I can touch you now.
Like, he does do that in the book, but it's not quite the same. But I just mean, yeah, he just does a lot of more touching and raging and overall. The whole point is, like, his movements are very languid and lazy. He only moves, he moves as little as possible. And he uses magic for everything. I think I made the point again before, like, you know, like, he wouldn't swat a fly. He'd Avada Kedavra. That was the type of person he was. He was magic over everything. He'd magic. He'd physical as little as possible. But I think they thought maybe for the movies it would look better, maybe a little more intense or scary if he was more physical. So I that one at least I can grasp. Some of the ones I'm like, I have no idea what they're going for. That I think that's what they were going for. They thought just visually it looks a little more intimidating, a little more scary if he puts a little more oomph into it.
But I think so.
I don't know. I like the calm, cold Voldemort that barely moves. Because when he does move, that's when, you know, things really start happening. I can't remember if he does it exactly like this. Again, I think this is more physical in the book. I don't mind it, though. It's okay. Shows sort of the magical nature of their mask. Like, what a big reveal. I can't believe Malfoy's dad is one of them. Whisper of your whereabouts. Yeah, my coming back is not going to go well for you, Lucius. You're going to wish I never did. You don't even do a good job of your true mask. You spend all your time being, like, openly racist and, like, threatening Harry Potter. He acts like I do such a good job of hiding my dark intentions and dark past. It's like, no, you don't.
No,
like, literally everybody, like, Ron's dad is always talking about, like, how you're doing this or saying that. You know, like, you're not good at hiding it at all. Oh, so this is a fun callback. So, like, you know how we talked over it. Wormtail had to hack off his own hand to make the spell, and then he gave him the thing. Early, in that first introduction chapter in the flashback, when they're having the discussion about it, obviously he doesn't say exactly what's going to happen, but he says, "Don't worry, Wormtail's like pouting about something because he's saying like how much he sucks. But he's like, "I was useful. I caught Bertha Jorkins for you." He's like, "I guess you did." Blah blah blah. Because the whole point is he's being sulky because he's talking about how he's not named, but how Crouch is a much better servant than Wormtail. Wormtail's being sort of sulky about it. But then he says, "No, I'm not ungrateful, blah, blah. And by the way, Wormtail, when we get to the big thing I'm going to do, you're going to perform a task for me that's so great that most of my followers would give their right hand for." And he's like, "Oh, what is it?" He's like, "I don't want to spoil the surprise." And it's like, literally, you're going to give me your right hand. It is pretty good for Jack. Because he's just, it's Voldemort having a little fun there. It's like, yeah, that's what you're actually going to do. But yeah, this is a great scene. It also really, it really does show. I mean, I get it. Harry's the hero. He's brave. Blah blah blah. But it is a good example of like really putting yourself sort of in the context of this. Like, could I be that brave? Because what Harry does here is really exceptional. It's like, could I have done that at 14? Could I do that now? It does show, what Harry's made of. We're coming up to it. You know what I mean? It's where he goes out and faces him, right? Cedric was killed because he wasn't important. He was kept alive because they need him for the thing. Now, Harry knows. The only point now is to kill me. There, Now you have to duel not just an adult wizard, but the most powerful dark wizard.
Yeah.
You have no chance. And you have no fucking chance. And I'll torture a little first, just for fun. Something that it's not too big of a deal, but one of the things that happens in a later class with Moody is that he starts putting the Imperious Curse on them to try to encourage them to throw it off. And it's shown that Harry is the only one who's able to fight it, which I think does line up a bit. It's too bad that's not in the movie. It's not huge, but I mean, it is. I do think it is important to point out things that do make Harry somewhat special. Because it's a weird line we're walking with Harry in that, one, he's the chosen one, blah, 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 from a thing. But the other is, no, mostly he's a normal guy. He's not like a great student, like Hermione's a better student. He's not great at this or that or anything. But there are things that do make him special. You have to walk that line. So here he is with Cedric. That's what he said. Yeah, so this is the moment. Harry knows he can't get away, and I wish I could find the bit, but where he's just like, I'm not going to die cowering. I'm going to go up and face him. And that's could I do that? I don't know. I don't know if I'd have the guts. Maybe I die just getting shot running away, like he tries. Also, there's a certain sort of genre savviness that comes with this too, right? So I'm like 17 reading this. I'd seen stuff like this in fiction before. I can't say exactly what. Like, I was not at all surprised once this like wand blocking thing happened. Plus, again, my superior knowledge of Latin. I was like, oh, okay, it's going to start barfing up and regurgitating spells. Like, that wasn't difficult for me to figure out because I don't know. I'd sort of seen stuff like that before. They actually had to reshoot this scene because they got the order wrong at first. Because there's Cedric, there's Caretaker. But it's only by a second. But see, his mother is first, right? Because his father was killed first, then his mother, right? Everybody else. They did it wrong at first. They had the father ahead of the mother, and they had to redo it. Here's that happening here. It involves several other people being brought back too. It's hard to see, but there's other like ghostly figures being brought back. Yeah, there's some glare there. Sorry, everyone. Yeah. But yeah, just that moment of Harry being behind the grave and going, psyching himself up to go, like, that is super brave. You wonder, could I have done that? Could I have gone out and faced my death like that? There's the real Alistair Moody at the bottom of his prison, missing his leg. Yeah, but as I said, like, it's my favorite book, and it is a very good movie, but the plot really makes no sense. If all you needed to do was wait till a night in June to get Harry into that graveyard for your ritual, you could have had Moody make fucking anything into a portkey and easily have Harry touch it. You didn't need to make such a specific item as the Tri-Wizard Cup so that you have to make a 14-year-old enter a contest only for 17-year-olds and then make sure you do everything in your power that he survives it and wins so he can hit it just at the right moment. It's stupid. They already established you can turn a fucking boot into a portkey. I'm surprised Jo doesn't go over. I guess she wants to let the father have his moment. This whole time, Dumbledore's been fooled. It's only in this moment that Dumbledore starts to put things together, which I'm fine with, because again, Dumbledore, he's not infallible. He can make mistakes, obviously, and having a dark wizard operating at his own school the whole year is pretty bad. But it's interesting. Pulling back to the castle. It's a long walk. But yeah, we've seen Crouch Jr. enough times in the movie already that you're probably starting to think, okay, he's either Crouch Jr. himself or working with him. Because you're like, there has to be some sort of payoff to that guy that we kept seeing, this extra guy, who we eventually find out is Crouch Jr., who obviously killed his father, so he's around. Like, somebody killed his father. Who would kill him? He would. Right? So you have enough information in the movie at this point to know, like, Crouch Jr. is either him himself or directly involved. Because it's just like, okay, a former Death Eater, Crouch Jr. Crouch just died. Obviously, it's his son who would have killed him, right? Yeah. Despite, again, that massive plot hole, it's still my favorite of the books. It's the most satisfying. It's really good. And it's not like they all go off a cliff after that. I still like all the other books, although the last one really does disappoint me. That's what's funny, too. Like, the 5th movie is my least favorite movie. I don't have many problems with the book. It's just how badly they botched the movie. Order of the Phoenix is a pretty good book. I can remember having, I don't know if it was Napster, but it was in those file sharing days. And I remember it was a few months before Order of the Phoenix came out. I downloaded what I thought was like a leaked version of it, but it was just somebody's fan fiction. But I read like the first 3 chapters, and it wasn't bad. I wish I could remember the differences, because it was obviously quite different. But it was a pretty good fan. Like, they knew what they were doing. I mean, I wasn't fooled for very long. I was like, okay, this is obviously not the book. That's weird, too. Why is he imitating Hagrid? And now the whole, my plan was so brilliant, and you almost fucked it up over and over again. Is he going to call... I think he's going to call poor Neville the Witless Wonder. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Witless Wonder. Poor Neville. Everybody dunking on Neville. That's, of course, Brendan Gleeson. He's a very good actor. Up in that graveyard night because it was meant to be. Yeah, and you could have done it in a lot simpler, less crazy, roundabout fashion where a million things could have gone wrong. Starting to lose it. That's the thing. Would he reward you? He really wanted to do it himself. But then again, he probably would because he was so pissed that he got away from him. Yeah, see, this doesn't go like that either. They do make an allusion to that chest earlier in the movie, where like Harry's talking to him, and you actually hear the real Moody screaming, and he makes that offhand remark. I don't even want to tell you what's in there.
Yeah.
So there's a couple times where he just like realizes the best, way to hide something is just to acknowledge it. Like the same thing he did when Karkaroff accused him of giving a lot of thought into how you would like hoodwink the Goblet of Fire. By just coming out and saying like how you would do it, which is how he did it. Holy juice potion. But I'll never ever apologize to Harry for accusing him of stealing from me, because I'm not that kind of person.
Well, he is sort of undercover. He's got to remain kind of an ass to his front.
I mean,
and he was a Death Eater. He was an asshole.
Yeah, he has a. I know, but it's too far. Why on earth would he be still employed? Like, why would Dumbledore be like, "Hey, I'm really grateful to you for the stuff you did, but you are a garbage teacher, man." Like, I got more students coming saying how unprofessional and shitty you are. And, like, the Harry thing, I get why you don't like him. But that was his dad. That was his dad. Are you retarded? Or are you a full-grown adult? You want to hate Harry for something his father, who died when he was 1, did. Like, again, like, if you just logic this out, like, what a prick. And how immature and stupid he really is. Oh, you just keep reminding me of your father. Your father had glasses too. Like, get over it, you piece of shit. There's important things going on in this world, and you know it better than anyone. You're privy to all this shit. You're part of the big master plan with him, about how you had to protect this boy and all this stuff. I get it. You didn't like his dad. His dad was a prick. But his dad was pretty nice as an adult, by all accounts. Everyone says, yeah, he was kind of a jerk, but as an adult, he was a really nice guy. So
but you don't think
again,
a part? I know that's true. I know he really did feel that way, but don't you think it's also part of a front to keep that? Again, he's a spy, so
he has to keep up a front for who though? Like who's watching him?
You never know who's watching
like
in the wizarding world.
I guess
you got
I'm just
Malfoy reporting to his dad, probably.
I know. I'm saying, and he has good answers. Like another thing that's really annoying about the sixth movie is the sixth movie is, once again starts without Harry, and it starts in that little village where Snape talks to Malfoy's mom and what's her name? Bellatrix, right? Bellatrix. Yeah. In the book, Bellatrix interrogates the shit out of him because she says, like, okay, you've been at here all along. Why is Harry Potter still alive? Why is Dumbledore still alive? And he has perfect answers for everything. So it shows, like, Snape knows what he's doing. But yeah, there's not really any point to go overboard mean to Harry. Like that doesn't do anything. But yeah, that's something that really should be in the movie. Because you might think, like, why wouldn't Bellatrix rake him over the coals? In the book, she absolutely does. She takes him to task on everything, going all the way back to the first movie. She's like, why didn't you help Quirrell? Quirrell had our Lord's head, on his head. It's like, I didn't know. And he wouldn't tell me. I didn't know what to think of him. I couldn't trust him. He's like, Voldemort did not choose to reveal himself to me. He could have. There's a few things there. Like, so he goes through book by book and explains his actions, and he always has good, satisfying answers. To Bellatrix's credit, she still doesn't trust him, but she also can't, openly accuse him of anything or prove it, and she can't talk her sister out of doing what she wants. Plus, she thinks, hey, making him do the unbreakable vow, now he's stuck, not knowing that Dumbledore planned to die anyway. That's another thing too. I mean, I've probably said this before too. Again, I'm not so smart, I'm not so savvy, but I mean, I can't. Who the hell watched that movie or read the book and thought, wow, Snape was a traitor all along? Like, could you really think that? Like, I knew that people actually thought that. How could you think that? You think that Dumbledore would just let Snape kill him? Like, because he didn't want to die. I mean, like, find out, no, Snape is a traitor. Now he's killed. Like, make that, like, again, like, to show, it's important to show that Dumbledore's not infallible. He makes mistakes. But to show that he's so inept that the one guy he trusted above all others was actually, like, bad all along and kills him, just makes him look like a fool. And I was like, there's no way they would do that. So, and plus, again, his last words, like, Severus, please. It's like, okay, he's saying, please do it. I don't know the reasons yet. I don't know why. Maybe it's just so important that he maintain his cover again. I didn't know the whole thing about how he's going to die anyway, But yeah, so I'm not claiming any sort of special insight there. To me, that's basically common sense. Like, but I can remember in the build-up, like, people thinking, "Wow, Snape really was the bad guy." And I don't like Snape, and he's an unnecessary, cruel jerk. But I know he's not actually that full-on bad guy. I mean, these are good scenes. I know I talked over them, but it is good scenes. It shows Harry's feeling survivor's guilt, which is a very real thing, right? He survived and Cedric didn't, and he knows it's just even though he was brave to get himself out of there, it's more of a fluke that he survived than anything else. This is never followed up on in other movies, but it is followed up in the books that she keeps correspondence with him. We'll never forget your bravery, the way you were unconsciously dragged through the waters. Don't worry. Hey, you've got a hot older brother. Well, I'll hook up with him then.
Okay.
No Bill or Charlie. And again, I know I talked over it, but there's a part towards the end when they show the people of the judges. We do see, like, Percy or somebody who looks like Percy who's taking Crouch's spot. But Ludo Bagman is supposed to be a judge, too. The judges are supposed to be the three headmasters of the school, Crouch and Bagman. And after Crouch gets killed, Percy replaces him.
Well, it is a commentary. If you weren't talking, they'd just be listening to us sitting here quietly watching the movie.
Yeah, I know. If you were watching this and you're thinking, God, does this guy ever shut up? Ha! You've been, this was the whole point.
You clicked commentary.
Yeah. You want the movie? You just see it your way, that's fine. You can always do that. You click commentary. I'm going to give you that some more.
But definitely hope that if you did listen to this, that you're enjoying it and having fun watching along with us.
Chapter 37, the beginning. Right. So there's a wrap up here that wouldn't be in the movie again, where Fred and George come clean about the whole bet they had with Bagman. And that's where Harry decides to give them the money. Because Harry won 1,000 galleons. That's the prize money for winning the contest. And again, he did try to do the right thing. He tried to give the money to Cedric's parents, but they didn't want it and told them to keep it. So he gave it to them. Said, hey, do those dreams. And here's also part of the wrap up. The imprisoned Rita Seeker in her beetle form, as Hermione had caught her, and would eventually blackmail her into not writing any more bullshit like stories anymore for at least a year, or she'll rat her out. That's one of the things I really admire Hermione for. It's too bad it's not in the movie. I like how she really took down Rita, because that was a subplot going through. Is because she doesn't just like badmouth Harry; she drags Hermione into it. She talks about Hermione is Harry's girlfriend, which she's not, and also points out like it's kind of amazing that she's Harry's girlfriend because Harry's so special and amazing, and she's so like lame, So she has like a real personal thing against Rita throughout it, which is too bad. So yeah, not my favorite movie, but still a very good movie. My favorite book for sure.
And possibly my favorite movie and not my favorite book.
Yeah, there you go. But I still do like other movies, but yeah, the next movie is going to be really something.
It'll be fun still. Yeah. It'll be fun.
Because I talked a lot through this one. Yeah. There's so little I can take away from that movie as a positive. That movie still bothers me to this day. It's funny, too, because like what bothered me most about my favorite movie, the third one, is that it was so close to being perfect. And I feel like the things that could have fixed it were so small. Like, less than 10 minutes could have been added to that movie to fix everything. Instead, it
would have answered a few questions that those of us who hadn't read the book would have helped.
Yeah, like it would have been so hard to explain that Lupin and him were friends that became animagi, so they could hang out with him when he became a werewolf. They kept it a secret. They made the map. They had the nicknames. That would not have taken much extra time to add that exposition in, and it would explain a little bit more about how much Snape had a resentment for them and everything. Explain what happened. I feel like it was so close to being great, and yet you just come away kind of confused. It's like, how does Lupin know this stuff? And why is this happening? There's a few things that just aren't. And what's even more annoying is like in the fifth movie, because they couldn't remove it because for all the stuff they removed, the part where where Harry is caught by he wants to escape and he's caught by what's her name? Shit, names fleeing me.
Hold on.
Umbridge, yes. And the others, right? But Snape is in the room, so he's like, I can get a message to Snape to let him know what he thinks. He thinks that Sirius has been captured, right? So he calls out. He's like, in code, he goes, it's in the movie. He says he's got Padfoot. He's got Padfoot, the place that it's hidden, because Snape knows what Padfoot is. He understands he means Sirius. But in the movie, out of context, again, if you only watch the movies, I don't know what you would think. Like, nobody says Padfoot in the fourth book or the fourth movie or the third movie. To know that Padfoot is his... That's the other thing, too, right? Like, he makes the stag. The stag was what his dad turned into. That's why it is his...
I think we talked about this.
So easy to connect.
And that was confusing to me watching when I first watched it.
Yeah, we absolutely talked about it. My point just is, like, I feel like that's a simple fix. The third movie was such a simple fix. They could have cleared up those things with a few extra lines of dialogue. 5 minutes. 10 minutes is probably pushing it. Probably, like, I get it. People don't like long expositional scenes with tons of talking, but I don't think that's a ton of talking. I don't think so. That's what bothers me. This one bothers me because I feel like they took a couple core things that are absolutely essential to the plot and either changed them or got rid of them directly. To me, getting rid of, again, there's so much that doesn't work logically. We just watched a movie. Again, take the books out. We just watched a movie where this whole thing was the Ministry and everyone was in uproar because this famous Death Eater had escaped. Now a Death Eater escapes and nobody's saying anything, and nobody seems to notice or care. Like we just take it for granted that Crouch escaped. We don't know how he did it. We don't know when he did it, and nobody seems to care. No one's talking about it at all, and we never question it. Like, no. In the book, again, there's a good explanation. Nobody knows he escaped. They thought he died. His mother switched places with him and then died shortly after. So there is no escape on the books as far as the Wizarding world is concerned. But that's not at all in the movie. And in the movie, he's just outwardly operating. Harry literally sees him at the very start in a place he wasn't present for. So yeah, that bothers me a lot. So Winky and him, that should have been fixed. And what was the other thing? Oh, the flashback stuff in the Poncia. They should have done that properly. They should not have combined it all into one event. Doesn't work. So those are my main concerns. And this is just a sneaking suspicion because I like the Yule Ball stuff. It's fun. It's entertaining. You need it. That's what's nice about these books. Again, is they have the dark, serious stuff going on, but there is fun, lighthearted stuff about kids at a magical school going on. And the Yule Ball is a big part of that, right? Showing some of their teenage angst and them growing up and some of the romantic stuff. Like, I get it. You like some levity. But I feel like they put so much into that, I think they probably led it to cutting some of the other stuff out, which I really think is unfortunate. Anyway, overall, it is my favorite book and maybe my second favorite movie. So as much as it seemed like I'm bitching, it's just for fun, for commentary circumstances. I still think the movie does hold up and works quite well for the most part. Enjoy it a lot. So I'm glad we were finally able to do it after a really long delay. We had a lot of things going wrong. And at first it seemed like, when my connection was all fucked up, we finally ready to do it. And now it's all cutting out. But
yeah, I was scared, but it worked out.
So yeah. So this should be a better quality because like right now, as you see, no annoying StreamYard logo. It'll probably be back for the next one, but let's do the trial. So at least we managed to have some decent quality. But anyway, we'll deal with things how they go. Can't hear anything. That's great. Well, our mics work, so I don't know. We can hear each other, so I don't know. It shouldn't. I don't see how the audience would be able to hear. No, I guess we'll find out. Don't tell me you have to overdo this.
No,
You're not
I just checked YouTube. I think we're coming through.
Okay. Anyway, we'll figure this out. Don't make me think that this whole thing was wasted. It took so long to put this together. I could totally do it again, though. I easily could. I'm a psychopath. I could easily just do the whole thing again. You would? Yeah, I would. It wouldn't be exactly the same, but I could.
No, there'd be
hopefully this time.
New things said, but I almost can watch the Harry Potter movies at any time and talk about them.
Yeah. As I said, it was hard too to get. I was doing all this Star Wars stuff. Yeah, I don't know. The other thing is, whenever I host my own ones, I don't have a place to use my good mic, so I know my audio is not quite as good as it could be when I host. But I've watched plenty of these. It's decent. It's fine enough. But yeah, when I host my own, I have to use the thing to plug in, so I don't have enough ports or whatever. USB places to put in my good mic, which is over there. But when I stream with other people and they host, I use my good mic. And I know it is a little better, but I know it's also okay. So I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, thanks so much for anybody that tuned in now or in the future. But God, I hope there's no audio issues to think. Oh, I can't even think if I had to do this over. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it'll be a little while before we can do the next one, whether it's a do-over, hopefully not, or the fifth one. Fingers crossed it's the fifth one. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I am talking about what Play Jess is saying. But anyway, I can't be distracted anymore. But yeah, I know things are a little busy in the summer. So probably might not be till closer to the end of the summer, I would assume, that we get the next one.
Yeah.
So
we'll see. I'm excited. The Order of the Phoenix. And
yeah. I mean, it's not a terrible movie. I just think it's the worst movie in the series.
Well, yeah.
Wow, I tried to write in the comments and it wouldn't go, so I don't know.
Yeah, it did. Hi. Hello. Can you hear me?
Oh, there it goes. Yeah. I don't know. I wrote hi because yes, I can see all the comments, obviously. But I don't know. I don't see how this.
No, and I just checked YouTube, but as far as I know, the sound's coming in clear.
You heard that? Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So maybe it's just something going on with yours because that scared the shit out of me to think that I put it took forever to get we tried a couple times to get the show and there were various issues. So it was a long time coming. So to think that this one was coming through and there was no volume. There was no sound for the audience. Oh my God, no. I don't know. Anyway, I guess I'll find out for sure, but that scares the hell out of me. But anyway, thanks so much. So yeah, probably yeah, like I said, probably a while. I don't think we will be able to do this again until the end of the summer, but I'll still be around, and maybe I'll have time to do a solo commentary too. Just get myself back in the swing of things, because I've actually been off for longer than I meant to be. I've been on a bit of a hiatus sabbatical. That was not really my idea. It just kind of happened. So I hopefully this, I don't have anything more ambitious than this series going on at the moment, but I can at least do something casual, just for the hell of, getting something done. And I know there's other stuff going on in cable channel 11. So watch for that, people.
Thank you. Yeah, Corey, just in the chat there also from cable channel 11. And hello to Play Chess with Nam, but I'd check your volume.
Yeah. That scared the hell out of me to think that we did this whole thing and there's no audio. Like, no, say it's not so. But anyway, yeah, we'll wrap up. But thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully not too long for now. But as I said, we'll be around. But yeah, for Harry Potter, it might be a little while. But, we are going to see this through. We're going to do the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
it'll get done.
Yeah. Just take some time.
So, it's funny. I mean, I ran my mouth through this whole thing, but every time we do these, and especially as the books get more complicated, I was like, oh, there's something I should have mentioned that I didn't. But, I can never be fully happy with them and stuff like that. And I feel like I didn't let Jess talk as much as I normally do, too. But
I push in the few things that I want to talk about. I honestly enjoy being somebody to bounce off stuff on, and I'm learning some fun facts, too. So I'm having fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I know you have a connection to these books and movies too, and I'm not trying to overplay it like I'm just
Mine
the one who's been
usually short and
recently,
sweet.
So
I tell my story and I'm good. So I'm glad you were able to give a good running commentary.
Yeah, I am capable of short and sweet in the right situations. I swear I am. But anyway, now we are running long, so we'll let it go. So anyway, thanks a lot. Hopefully the audio is okay. So thanks so much, and we'll see you all next time. And be well, mischief managed. Bye-bye. So
I need a
delay here. This is a delay.